Have you ever heard of somebody getting a preemptive pardon who was innocent of all crime?
No, I think that it's an effort not only to prospectively pardon people for things they have not yet been charged with and may never be charged with, but also it's the president's own family. It's people that have been covering up for the president in addition to his own family. This is the nature of those the president has surrounded himself with, including his family. And that is, it's been essentially a den of thieves environment.
That was 4 days ago, 5 days ago.
Come on, man. Give me a little break here.
In this world, there's two kinds of people, my friend. Those with loaded guns and those who dig. Broadcasting from a Montana wilderness fortress at the headwaters of the Missouri, this is Matt Christiansen Live.
Hello and welcome to the show. This is Matt Christiansen Live for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. Thank you for tuning in. Well, despite my fears, despite my worries, despite my doubts at times, son of a bitch, Donald Trump is president again. He really did it. And of course, there's plenty of news to go along with that. Trump pardons Silk Road founder Ross Ulbricht and pretty much everybody for January 6th offenses. When I say pretty much everybody, there was a small group that were just commutations, not pardons. We'll get into that. Joe Biden saved some of his best pardons for very late, or as late as possible. And when I say best, I mean most controversial, most corrupt, of course. But late as possible in his presidency, Monday morning, including all of his siblings, who definitely didn't help him do anything corrupt dating back to January 1st, 2014 specifically, as the pardons specify. Later in the show, I regret to inform you, a female police officer has struck again, and this case might be the worst ever. She accidentally shot a guy with his own gun during a routine traffic stop. She was trying to remove the gun from his person for the safety of everyone involved, and shot him in the leg. So we'll check in on that. In the second half of the show, Batman will join to take calls with me. And of course, if you'd like to call the show, find the Discord link in the description. There are instructions and help available on the server if you need that. I'll catch up with your super chats, of course, as well, halfway through the show and then at the end also. And speaking of, hey, if you enjoy the show, please consider supporting the show. You can do that for as little as $1 a month over on my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com or mattis.gay. Listener support is what keeps my operation running, and it is, of course, hugely appreciated. There are perks available for your support as well. mattchristiansenmedia.com/support, linked in the description. And of course, we got to say hi to our friendly featured, no, what's the saying? Featured friendly listener. I can't. How long have I been doing this show? I don't even remember my own taglines. Our friendly featured listener-owned business for the evening. That's our friends over at Hope Innovations. Have you ever wanted to grow your own garden, but you didn't feel like you had the space? Well, with food prices rising and chemicals being added to our food every day, you might consider adding a hydroponic garden system to your home. Grow clean and fresh produce all year round with the Eden Tower from Hope Innovations. When it comes to growing your own food, invest in the best system out there and discover the joy of regularly having freshly harvested salads, homegrown herbs, tomatoes, peppers, and more with your very own hydroponic system, engineered to be elegant and practical. The Eden Tower stands above the competition with its patented cup system that allows you to just drop a seed and go. You do not need a green thumb to easily grow delicious and nutritious food at home. Get $200 off an Eden Tower hydroponics kit from Hope Innovations through a listener-exclusive link available only on my website. Head on over to mattchristiansenmedia.com/deals. Find the Hope Innovations link and click that link for $200 off an Eden Tower hydroponics kit and get started growing your own food easily and simply today. Find everything you need from our friends at Hope Innovations, plus other great offers from the rest of our friendly listener-owned businesses like Hero Soap Company, Western Razor Company, Kineo Mountain Woodsmithing, and more. MattChristiansenMedia.com/deals. Deals by listeners, for listeners. And don't forget, our friends at Hero Soap Company have a special Trump inaugural soap for a limited time only while supplies last. 47 has a smoky cedar wood scent that is bold and refreshing, like a celebratory cigar to honor and appreciate the moment. It's great soap, terrific soap, tremendous soap, frankly, the very best. And you can ask anyone about that. People often do. 10% off the special inaugural soap 47 or anything else from our friends at Hero Soap Company. Promo code MCListener, of course. Well, there was a school shooting today in Nashville, Tennessee. And very unfortunate event, obviously. Antioch High School, a female student was killed when a 17-year-old student with a pistol fired multiple shots in the cafeteria about 11 a.m. local time this morning. Another male student was grazed but is apparently okay. The shooter then killed himself, and you're not going to hear anything about this after maybe today because it was a school shooter of color. So, yeah, well, that's that. Just going on to be friends with Tim Walz. Nothing more to see here. Apparently, there are manifesto materials in this case, and I've seen them circulating Twitter. I can't actually show them on YouTube without risking the wrath of Raju Mohan. Quite interesting. Frequent use of the N-word in this manifesto. In fact, my sources say he referred to himself as an N-word cell, as in some kind of mashup to mean involuntary N-word is what he was calling himself. I'm an involuntary N-word. And I thought, well, I didn't know there were voluntary N-words. But then I remembered Rachel Dolezal, of course, the only voluntary N-word I've heard of. But, of course, all the best to everybody involved. Terrible event. We'll see what more information comes out on that. Well, you know, even though things have changed around here, I still don't talk about gay football very much. It's not a football show, of course, but, you know, we could get into gay football a little bit more if we wanted to. Once in a while, it does become relevant, though, and it's not just when my favorite players make great plays that we have to recognize.
Diego Fago Kniga.
In Philadelphia, the Eagles are having a great season. They are hosting the surprisingly great Washington Commanders, formerly the Washington R-Words, in the NFC Championship this weekend. The winner will go on to the Super Bowl. Now, to hype up Philadelphians before last Sunday's divisional round game against the LA Rams, Mayor Sherelle Parker, well, she made a very solid attempt at spelling the team name.
Let me hear you all say, E-L-G-L-E-S, Eagles! Let's go, Birds!
Elgseas. Go Elgseas. Commanders fans proposed merchandising the moment. Fly, Elgseas, fly. Eagles fans, I guess, have actually merchandised the moment. I don't have the link handy. Or maybe it's in this story. You can buy your, let's see if it's down here. Yeah, you can buy your Kelly Green Elgseas t-shirts at phillygoat.com. Now, making matters even more embarrassing, apparently this Mayor Sherelle Parker, at least according to her own campaign website, her prior career was English teacher. Well, at least you got some of the letters right. Now, the only person more scrutinized this week for questionable stage presence than the Philadelphia mayor, of course, is Elon Musk, who could not contain his inner fascist while celebrating Trump's win, clearly made a Nazi gesture on the stage to salute his fellow Reichsman.
This one really mattered. And I just want to say thank you for making it happen.
Then repeatedly raising his arm in a gesture critics quickly compared to a Nazi salute.
My heart goes out to you.
But the Anti-Defamation League posting online, it seems like Musk made an awkward gesture in a moment of enthusiasm.
Now, per the AP, the narrative is it doesn't even matter if Elon Musk meant to do a Nazi salute or not. It's been embraced by Nazis. and right-wing extremists. So, it might as well have been intentional. But the best part of the story is what you heard there from the reporter. Of course, you can go on X and you can see endless clips of Democrats getting excited and doing the same move. The straight arm gesture, as the AP describes it. But yeah, even the ADL is saying, oh, come on, chill out, everybody. Elon Musk just got a little bit excited. He was having fun. He's not going to put anybody in the concentration camps. You don't have to get on the train. The ADL statement reads in part, it seems that Elon Musk made an awkward gesture in a moment of enthusiasm, not a Nazi salute, but again, we appreciate that people are on edge. Because, of course, everywhere else there are Nazis running around trying to put you on the train to take you to the camp. In this moment, all sides should give one another a bit of grace, perhaps even the benefit of the doubt, and take a breath. This is a new beginning. Let's hope for healing and work toward unity in the months and years ahead, because that's what the ADL is known for, giving people the benefit of the doubt, offering them grace, working toward unity. Yeah, thank you, ADL. We appreciate it. Though I think the ADL may have actually missed something. In fairness, many did. I didn't see this right away either. Later on Monday, Elon Musk took the stage again. I think maybe the Nazi stuff is deliberate, because look at this gesture he made. And this was while jumping in the air, no less. Now, I've never seen a person contort himself into a swastika more convincingly. The orientation is even correct. It's not backward like a lot of the hoax hate cases. I think he actually broke his arm to achieve it. So, I don't know. Elon Musk's commitment to the Reich may be stronger than we realize. But let's get into the Trump pardons. We'll go Trump pardons first. I want to talk about the Biden pardons, the surprise last-minute Biden pardons. We'll get to those in a minute. But a lot of this was expected. Now, the January 6th stuff, we knew he was going to do some of it. I am surprised by the scale of it, which is, again, everybody, at least if you're counting clemency as both pardons and commutations. But Trump has done a bunch of immediate executive changes right after being sworn in on Monday. Much of that, a lot of that, there's a lot of substance to a lot of that executive action. I think the birthright citizenship one is particularly interesting. I posted a video about that this morning. Going to be interesting to watch that work its way through the courts. If you're interested in the legal basis for, or the supposed legal basis for birthright citizenship in the 14th Amendment, it's a video that I hope will be informative, and you can check that out. But Trump also issued a whole bunch of pardons, or at least one pardon that covers a lot of people, and one pardon that was promised to the libertarians as well. But again, it's basically everybody who was charged with or convicted of anything to do with January 6th. Now, as I mentioned, 14 of these are actually commutations. So remember, a pardon is fully excusing the crime. Commutation is not excusing the crime, but it's just reducing the sentence. So a lot of these people were in prison already. Their sentences are reduced to time served, and they're out or in the process of getting out. And a lot of those commutations, there are 14 of them. There are some names you may recognize. There's Stuart Rhodes, who was the Oath Keepers leader who was convicted of seditious conspiracy. He was sentenced to 18 years. There's Joseph Biggs, Proud Boys organizer, who was also convicted of seditious conspiracy. He was sentenced to 17 years. And at first I thought these commutations, well, why are some people getting commutations? I thought, are these violent people? Is that why, like, the violent people get commutations, but the rest of the people get pardons? That's not the distinction. Since a lot of these most serious convictions, like Stuart Rhodes, nonviolent, it's just seditious conspiracy. It's like high-level conspiracy charges, but it's not actually violent activity. And I thought, oh, is it the seditious conspiracy charge? Is that why? But that's not the distinction either, because Proud Boys leader Enrique Tarrio got a full pardon, not a commutation. And he was convicted of seditious conspiracy. So it turns out, as far as I've seen, unless I'm an idiot, which is certainly possible, I just haven't seen Trump's complete explanation for why some people got the commutations and almost everybody else got full pardons. But okay. In one form or another, everybody involved with January 6th prosecutions is getting either a reduction in sentencing or full-on forgiveness. So that accounts for about 1,500 people. The scale of this prosecution was unbelievable. So think about that. The January 6th prosecution is referred to by the DOJ as its largest ever investigative and prosecutorial operation ever. It's the single biggest prosecution operation that the Justice Department has ever conducted, and Trump just came in and wiped it all away. Now, it's not wiping it all away. I know that these people get to move on with their lives now, but of course they haven't for the last 4 years. So when we talk about, people act like it's just erasing. Well, it's really not, because it turns out there was a lot of time served for January 6th, probably more than plenty, actually. But the scale of DOJ effort that was in ways just wiped away is massive. Not that the federal government is a stranger to wasting time and money, but yeah, it is interesting how this developed. Now, of course, there were many people still facing charges, ongoing prosecution. And I had talked about this with regard to the January 6th pipe bomber just a couple weeks ago, because the DOJ had said we got like 200 more charges coming, or 200 more people we're going to charge. I thought, geez, they know the pardons are coming. Why are they doing this? So there were a bunch of people still facing prosecution from the Justice Department for January 6th. My understanding is those cases are just going to get dropped. Those are over. So January 6th, as the focal operation of the Justice Department, it's gone. It's done. Maybe one day we'll learn who that pipe bomber is, but I doubt it. Now, of course, even many Republicans or Trump allies, some of these people are upset that even violent people from January 6th received clemency. Again, either a pardon or a commutation of a sentence. And I get it. Violent acts are different than simply walking around in the wrong place, as many of the January 6th charges were. But does anybody seriously believe that anybody got away with their January 6th activity or antics except for maybe Ray Epps?
Fed.
Because even the violent ones have spent years locked up for what are mostly assault cases. And the ordinary sentence in an assault case, you're talking about the sort of time that has already been served. Maybe a year, maybe 2 years, if it's very serious, a couple years. It's not like these people went unpunished, even the violent ones. So even if you think that serious crimes were committed on January 6th, and there were some, haven't we resolved that now? Can't we move on? Haven't these people served a lot of time, actually? I think the price has been more than paid, and it seems like the president and his people agree. But you know who does not is former Metro police officer Michael Fanone, star of the January 6th committee hearings, among other shows and events. And he, of course, right on brand, appeared on CNN to express his outrage. And he says the country has betrayed him.
Thanks, America. This feels like a betrayal to you.
Oh, I have been betrayed by my country. Rest assured, I have been betrayed by my country, and I've been betrayed by those that supported Donald Trump. Whether you voted for him because he promised these pardons or for some other reason, you knew that this was coming, and here we are.
For the record, the guys who attacked him were convicted and sentenced to 12 and a half years and 50-month sentences. One guy got him with a stun gun. Another stole his badge and his radio. And they have both been locked up and or under house arrest since 2021. Again, doesn't mean they were justified, but they have both served a lot of time for their actions. As far as the claim of betrayal, the guy has it backward, coming from his perspective as a police officer. In that context, and I know he's not one currently, but he was, in general, he works for us. We don't work for him. So if in our judgment, the price for January 6th has been paid, then the price has been paid. Or alternatively, if we don't care about January 6th and prospective pardons as much as other issues, and so we vote for Trump for the million other perfectly valid reasons to vote for Trump and or against Biden, well, that's our right too. It's not a betrayal of Michael Fanone to want to be able to feed my family. or make sure my daughter doesn't get raped or murdered by an illegal immigrant. And by the way, you might think, hey, it'd be cool if groceries were more affordable, if I had a better income, and maybe I would not like my daughters to be attacked by illegal immigrants. I also think January 6th is bad. Very, very, very bad. But guess what? The price for January 6th, largely paid. I would like to move on to a prosperous country. Is that a betrayal of Michael Fanone? You could support the prosecutions in full and just think, there are more pressing matters that we need to move on to as a country. That's a betrayal of Michael Fanone. Always. You got to remember him. Don't put your family first. Don't put your community first. Don't put your city, your state, whatever. Michael Fanone, first and foremost. And it's awfully rich hearing this guy lecture us about how we've betrayed him, as though we owe him personally our vote on account of what he commands. This is a guy who is perfectly eager to betray the Constitution and try to violate our rights. In August 2023, Fanone wrote an op-ed in CNN all about any reason you can give for why you think you should be able to own an AR-15 is ludicrous. It's a fairly lengthy op-ed. And he says, in part, banning these powerful weapons from the civilian marketplace is a no-brainer, as are universal background checks. Neither move is going to solve all the gun problems that we have, but it would be a start. And the attack on your rights isn't just your gun rights and the right to defend yourself and your home and your family. It's also an attack on the process by which we make law, because he's not just saying, hey, Congress, get together and let's get these weapons of war off the street. Let's win one for common sense. He's actually saying, hey, if banning them outright seems too extreme, why don't we just reclassify them being semi-automatic rifles? So he's saying all. It's not even just the AR-15 specifically. All semi-automatic rifles reclassified as Class 3 firearms. So what does that mean? Well, you're going to have to jump through a whole bunch more federally administered regulatory hoops just to get your hands on one. So yeah, not just let's ban them, let's work around Congress through the executive to redefine what the law says so we can ban them. So for all the talk of loyalty and betrayal to constitutional turncoat Michael Fanone, I'm sorry you got attacked, but I have to award you one LaDonna.
I'd like to say fuck you!
If you want to talk about betrayals, leveraging your influence as a police officer to try to erode my constitutional rights to defend my family, certainly will earn that for you. But in another important piece of January 6th commentary, you may recall the story of Guy and Jackson Reffitt. Now, Guy Reffitt was convicted and sentenced to 7 years in prison on obstruction and dressed up trespassing charges. This is his son Jackson, who was a teenager at the time. As far as I'm aware, Guy, the father in this case, didn't commit any violence on January 6th, but they got him on charges, obstructing an official proceeding and parading around in the wrong place and that sort of stuff. And Guy Reffitt was actually the first defendant convicted at trial on January 6th charges. That was March 2022. Prior to that, there were only guilty pleas. He was the first guy to go to trial and actually get convicted. And Reffitt was arrested and imprisoned initially after his son, Jackson here, called the feds to report his dad, and the FBI raided him. And that was January 16th, 2021, that Jackson made that report. Or maybe that was the day of the raid, but that time frame. And Jackson, of course, has been ripped by many in response to all of this for betraying his dad, rightfully so, I think. He also raised $158,000 on GoFundMe on this basis, using it for who knows what, based on, ratting out his dad. So it's fair to say that Jackson has done some things for which he deserves harsh criticism. However, it's also clear, based on what he has to say now, that he has some regret about all of this and the way that he handled it. So I bring up this interview segment that he just did on CNN about the release of his dad, who he says remains a threat to him. So Jackson has armed himself. He's afraid that his dad is going to come try to get him, harm him in some way. I actually bring up this interview not to mock him, but really I want to focus on what he says about January 6th tearing his family apart.
Well, I'm honestly flabbergasted that we've gotten to this point. I mean, I'm terrified. I don't know what I'm going to do. I've taken as many precautions as I could recently. I've I've picked up a gun, I've moved, and I've gotten myself away from what I thought would be a dangerous situation and staying where I thought my dad could find me. I'm just so filled with paranoia about what could happen.
It really sounds like January 6th broke your family apart.
My father's actions coming from the Trump presidency and what he thought what he was doing was right just destroyed it. And I made a disgusting decision to inform authorities about what he was doing, and I still feel horrible about it every day. And, you know, my sisters are out there right now, and they're rooting for him. And
now, he might be right that his dad hates him. Maybe his dad is a threat to him. I don't know. I could see some very serious anger about how all of this was handled. I will note that's also not why his dad was locked up, though. His dad was not locked up for threatening his son, harming his son. His dad was locked up for nonviolent things on January 6th. But the reason I bring this up is this is a great example of what happens when you allow politics to override family loyalty. And certainly, as often discussed on various iterations of this show, there are crimes or moral failures that are so serious that they can and probably should break family. God, family, country is the order. God represents the moral truth in that case. I mean, if you have a family member who is a murderer, who is a rapist, who steals a bunch of stuff, things like that, they won't reform. They keep doing it. Okay, maybe that's sufficient to break a family bond. I get it. There are high-level moral truths that have to come before even family itself. Trespassing at the Capitol? Or something like that, nonviolent in nature. If trespassing at the Capitol breaks your family, that is more on the kid who called the feds than it is on the dad. Now, dad made a mistake, potentially, but this kid chose to put his dad or help put his dad in prison over silliness. And that was the other part about what this kid did that I think I failed to mention. When he says it, was disgusting. I'm really sad I did that. It wasn't just that he called the feds. He actually tried to get his dad the maximum sentence. I'm not sure if he was there at trial or how he tried to do that, but he was advocating for his dad to get the maximum sentence. So dad makes a mistake, a fairly forgivable one by the sound of it. Son goes to feds, and not just goes to feds to split up the family, but tries to make sure his dad is locked up for the maximum amount of time. Whatever you think of January 6th, family betrayal over politics, generally speaking, broad scale, is worse. You want to have a society that's falling apart? I get it. We probably shouldn't have mobs, rioting, or just mob behavior. You want a stable, prosperous society. You don't want mob behavior either, all right? I'm not saying everything on January 6th was just fine and it was a great showing or whatever. I'm saying that if you have to choose what's more damaging to society over time, breaking up the family over politics is extremely corrosive. Eroding family in this way is going to have greater consequences than, say, like January 6th is what I'm trying to say. The lesson for the rest of us is to be, what Jackson was not in this case, as forgiving as possible with family members. Why? Because family integrity is the building block of society. And it's not just because it's good for society that you do it. It's because if you want forgiving family members to help you when you screw up, you have to be a forgiving family member who helps them when they screw up. And that's the lesson of the Refit case. I hope that he's able to resolve this with his dad, because it is genuinely tragic to see a father-son relationship fall apart over something like this. And he seems awfully sincere when he talks about it, even if I obviously have problems with the way he handled it. But he seems to understand the consequences, and maybe that'll become more clear to him as he gets older. Now, also have some commentary from Congressman and Trump impeachment prosecutor Jamie Raskin. He says he can't even think of a rationale to explain these January 6th pardons, because pardons are issued either because the person is innocent of the charges or because the person suffered some sort of denial of due process, says Jamie Raskin. But that's not the case for any of these people, so it must be something else. What is Trump up to? Maybe It's that Trump is assembling a reserve army of foot soldiers for his next MAGA attack.
Pardons have generally been used when people are actually innocent or there was some procedural miscarriage of justice, and nobody's claiming that these people were innocent. We've got them on tape, hitting the police officers over the head with pipes and bats and Confederate battle flags. There was no procedural miscarriage of justice. On the contrary, they've had every benefit of due process. So then the question is, why are they being released? Are they being released as a reserve army of political foot soldiers to act on behalf of MAGA and Donald Trump? And I think that's what's so profoundly troubling to a majority of the American people.
Now, ironically, if Trump did assemble an army of trespassing grandmas, that may be actually stronger than the diversified U.S. Army at this point. I think I've asked this question before at some point on the stream, but if you had to pick in the trenches, all right, you get one person in that foxhole with you. Do you want the January 6th praying grandma, or do you want some obese tranny who's probably as likely to kill himself as he is to get killed by the enemy or get you killed? It's a tougher assessment than it should be. I'm not expecting January 6th praying grandma to, storm the beach and take on the entire enemy army. I'm just saying, like, a calm connection to God is appealing in such a scenario. So maybe the Trump reserve foot soldier army of trespassing grandmas is more viable than I initially thought in a combat scenario. So Jamie Raskin maybe has a point. Now, he answered his own question, at least nearly at the end there. Well, it can't be due process abuses. Yeah, it can, actually. It's exactly that. Why would pardons be issued? Well, one reason why is due process abuses. That's what a lot of this was. It was dressing up charges and sentences to the maximum extent and having that judged or evaluated by whom? By biased DC juries who convicted, I think, in every single trial that they were asked to evaluate. Was there anybody who was acquitted on January 6 charges? I don't know. I'm struggling to think of a person. If there is one, there are not a lot of them. Overwhelmingly, these are people who committed wrong place, wrong time crimes, trespassing type crimes. They were treated as though they were launching the second Civil War. So, it's not actually a reserve army of grandma foot soldiers for Trump. It actually is a bunch of people, some of them grandmas, who just want to go home and move on with their lives. And now it's time to do that. So we'll see how long they try to cling on to January 6th now that it is a kind of a legally dead issue. And thankfully, we don't have to talk about it anymore because I'm sure you're tired of me droning on about it tonight. So let's move on to Ross Ulbricht. Now, you may recall last May, Trump extended the olive branch to libertarians at the Libertarian National Convention. He made a series of commitments to the attendees to get their votes. And in exchange, many of them heckled and booed because, of course, that's what libertarians do. They hate winning more than anything. Their greatest opportunity to have some political power, some political relevance, and they boo and they shake their fists and they heckle. And I say this as someone who generally agrees with the libertarian philosophy of government. Okay, I'm largely in agreement with many of these people, at least as their thinking applies to government. Sometimes there's some moral questions I think get a little odd in some of that crowd, but for the most part, I would say that we are that I'm one of them. Or at least insofar as I can say that without the embarrassment of some of the association. Anyway, one of those promises that Trump made to the libertarian crowd was, hey, vote for me. I will free your guy, Ross Ulbricht.
I will commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht to a sentence of time served.
Even that sounds like it has hints of boos, or maybe it's just very enthusiastic yelling. I can't tell. Are there hints of boos and heckling in that response? Now, Trump did it. He actually did even better than what he said he would do at that convention. He didn't just commute Ross Ulbricht's sentence. He gave him a full pardon. Again, excusing him of his conviction, wiping away his felony convictions. I'm sure there were plenty in the crowd who booed when they heard that. Or plenty who were in the crowd then who maybe booed at this news. You get what I'm saying? Anyway, let's back up. Who is Ross Ulbricht? What was this story all about? Well, Ross Ulbricht was the creator, or is the creator, of the former Silk Road Marketplace. The New York Times reporting here calls it the Silk Road Drug Marketplace. And there was plenty of that. I'm not trying to downplay that or say that's not what it was. But it was a market for really anything that people wanted to buy and sell. It was a black market or an underground market. Anonymous users could connect with each other and they would buy and sell with Bitcoin, preserving as much anonymity as possible. Now, because it was anonymous, the site was often used to buy and sell otherwise illegal things, drugs included, but not always. Silk Road launched in February 2011 until Ross Ulbricht was arrested in San Francisco at a library in October 2013. Now, I was looking at, again, all of this was really handled by Bitcoin. And I look back at this because it's like, I remember my dumb degenerate friends who bought like Molly on the Silk Road with Bitcoin. And back then I thought Bitcoin was like the internet degenerate currency for buying drugs. And now I'm thinking, gee, man, if I had scooped just one Bitcoin off my idiot, degenerate Silk Road drug consuming friends, I'd never have to. Well, I mean, I would have to work if I only had one Bitcoin, but the future would have been a lot brighter if I had found a way to get some Bitcoin out of my degenerate friends way back when. But I was reading about just how much Bitcoin was part of this operation and what happened to all of that. Get this. When the FBI raided Ross Ulbricht and the Silk Road, they seized 26,000 Bitcoins from, I gather they seized from all the accounts on the Silk Road, not just from Ross. And mind you, that's not $26,000 worth of Bitcoin. That's 26,000 Bitcoins. Today, each Bitcoin is valued at just over $100,000 a coin. Meaning the FBI, if my math is correct, the FBI seized what would now be about $2.6 billion worth of Bitcoin from users on the Silk Road at the time that it was shut down. They also did it to Ross Ulbricht personally. The FBI took 144,000 Bitcoins. Again, not $144,000 worth of Bitcoin, 144,000 Bitcoins. And that it was worth about $87 million at the time. Today, again, if my math is right, that's like $14 billion in Bitcoin. What the hell happened to all the Bitcoin? I was reading, supposedly the FBI just auctioned it off. Maybe you have some of Ross's former Bitcoin or some druggie on the Silk Road's Bitcoin. I don't know. Who knows? I didn't get any of that auction Bitcoin. I guess I wasn't smart enough to buy back then. I just wonder, did that actually go to upgrading the kits of all the various feds who, come and shoot your dog and your wife in the face when they have their way with you? Anyway, what happened to Ross Ulbricht? Back to the point. Well, he was charged with numerous federal offenses, including engaging in a criminal enterprise, distributing narcotics, conspiring to commit money laundering, and conspiring to commit computer hacking, among other charges. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole in 2015. I think it was actually a double life sentence, but either way, you're locked up for life. You're not getting out. No parole. Until he walked out of federal prison, I think in Arizona or Phoenix or wherever yesterday, but he walked out of federal prison yesterday. And now he's not just free. Again, with the pardon, it's as though those convictions never happened. Now, Ross Ulbricht, he's big in the libertarian community. He has a lot of critics elsewhere. I just want to talk a little bit about the best and the worst view of Ross Ulbricht based on the facts. Now, if you're coming at this from like the libertarian convention perspective, and full disclosure, this is mostly the perspective I share. What did Ross Ulbricht do? Ross Ulbricht created a marketplace. He connected willing people together to engage in transactions consensually. As far as I understand, he didn't push people into it. He didn't even necessarily endorse any particular sale or product. He just provided infrastructure for people to connect. So in some sense, blaming Ross Ulbricht for other people's drug use is like blaming the road construction company when someone drives drunk. The Silk Road, also according to Ross's mom, which I wasn't a Silk Road user, so I'm just reading this. Maybe some of you who experienced it could tell me if I'm wrong. At least according to Ross's mom, the Silk Road was not total anarchy. It did have some rules. You couldn't defraud people. child porn was banned. I don't know how effectively those rules were enforced, but in general, there were at least rules against abusing non-consenting people. Also important to note, Ross Ulbricht committed no violence, or even if you think he enabled bad behavior or should have done more to stop bad behavior on his platform, he didn't do anything violent or forceful against anybody. And you can say that he did things wrong and still have questions about a life sentence or a double life sentence without parole in the context of a nonviolent crime. Now, what's the worst case against Ross Ulbricht if you want to be a critic of his? Well, you'd say Ross Ulbricht knew exactly what he was facilitating. Primarily very damaging drug use. According to prosecutors, there were 6 people who bought drugs on the Silk Road who died as a result of the use of those drugs. Now, it's not just the legality of the substances or not, though. It's the moral issue of knowingly enabling this destruction. I will note, though, that's a separate question. A court of law, prosecutors, the government, they're tasked with enforcing the law, not instilling virtue or leading us to live good lives. So I don't, even if I have some moral questions potentially about what was going on the Silk Road and whether a person ought to do that ethically, I don't know that it's the business of federal prosecutors to be enforcing that kind of stuff either. Or at least enforcing it the way that they did, to say that Ross Ulbricht has some sort of responsibility for the drug use of others or the drug sales and purchases of others. There were also allegations that Ross Ulbricht was trying to have people killed, that he was taking out hits on people. This was according to prosecutors. He was trying to have people who he perceived as threats to him killed. Important to note, nobody was ever killed. He was not charged or convicted of anything related to murder for hire. So it sounds like that, if that's true, they couldn't find a lot of good evidence of it. Highly possible it was kind of just drummed up stuff to sensationalize the story. And much like the January 6th people, even if you think Ulbricht is an evil criminal, that he did a lot of things wrong, things that a jury was perfectly correct in convicting him on, Ross Ulbricht has been locked up for a decade for nonviolent crimes. Ross Ulbricht, even if you think he was misguided, even if you think he built something that was a net negative for society, well, he clearly does have the ability to innovate and build things. Do any of us honestly feel threatened that Ross Ulbricht is out there free? Like, is it like some murderer is on the loose in our town? Like he's going to come get us? I don't think anybody honestly feels that way, of course. So hopefully Ross can continue building in the way that he was, build something great. Speaking of, I hope he rebuilds his life as well. He went in at about 30 years old, from my understanding. I've seen clips of him before he went in talking about how he wanted to build a family, get married, do all those, become a father, do all that stuff. Now he's 40. I hope there's still enough time for him because, even if he made mistakes, seems like he's paid a pretty heavy price. So Godspeed to Ross Ulbricht. And if he does start speaking publicly, I'll be very interested to hear what he has to say. There are also political lessons for what we just saw with the interaction between the libertarians and Trump, or the libertarians and maybe traditional conservative Republicans, to the extent those people are separate from Trump, whatever. But I thought Brandon Herrera had a great tweet on this. Still, hopefully, the possible ATF director, maybe someday. I thought this tweet was good and insightful, though. He said, regarding Ross Ulbricht, for Republicans, if you don't realize the impact the Libertarian independent vote had on the 2024 landslide due to things like Trump promising to pardon Ross, you're blind. For Libertarians, if you don't understand the significance of a president taking office and immediately fulfilling promises to the Libertarian community, you are the problem. Yeah, exactly. Now, I don't say this to dismiss the importance of having principled debates and even conflict about things that seem small, but they're actually very important moral issues or principles. Those discussions, those debates, they are important to have. That's how you get at the truth. That's how you find the right answer. However, I think we would all benefit from the sort of clear perspective that Brandon Herrera is offering here, which is to say there are people you can work with And there are people you absolutely cannot. And I think for the sake of all of us, we should recognize that distinction and stay focused on the unacceptability of the alternative. Yes, libertarians and conservatives often have different views on traditional morality and the role of government in upholding and enforcing traditional morality. But at least neither of us are insane communists who would undo all of that. So I think we can, in fact, all be friends and work toward mutually beneficial things, as I think Trump has tried to do in this case. Now, Trump, maybe he's done with pardons for the moment. Maybe he's not. I was thinking about who else I would like to see pardons offered to. And I thought, man, Douglas Mackey. And I talked to Douglas Mackey about this time last year. This is the guy who is convicted of conspiring against your constitutional right to vote because of his 2016 vote for Hillary by text tweets that I guess were too convincing for the taste of the Justice Department. But actually, Mackey was tweeting on Monday, he doesn't want a pardon for now. He wants his case to set a favorable precedent-setting ruling in the courts that will allow the DOJ, or will prevent the DOJ, rather, from weaponizing the law the way that it has been against him in the future. So Godspeed to Douglas. I was also thinking about those convicted federally in the Whitmer kidnapping plot, or the alleged Whitmer kidnapping plot, the biggest joke of FBI entrapment in recent memory. Many of the guys were convicted on federal charges, and some of them are still in federal prison, I believe. Some were state only. Obviously, Trump can't do anything about that. But several of these guys are locked up in federal prison for similar nonsense. We'll see if maybe pardons go that way. I would be less optimistic that that's going to happen with the Whitmer plot stuff, but maybe. And then I thought, of course, Joe Exotic, the Tiger King, Carol Baskin cannot keep getting away with this. Joe Exotic was posting on Instagram this week. You guys forgot me again. Joe Biden, Donald Trump, you forgot me again. I'm still rotting in federal prison. But Godspeed to Joe Exotic. All right, I'm running out of time, so let me keep moving before I get to the top of the hour. Now, I should have foreseen, we'll move from the Trump Biden, or the Trump pardons to the Biden pardons. I should have foreseen a round of controversial Biden pardons coming Monday morning, but I didn't. I thought the Hunter stuff was really the bulk of it, and that was probably it. And so I wake up on Monday morning and I look at my phone and I'm browsing through some news and I became immediately enraged. Why? Because that son of a bitch pardoned Fauci. No way.
I'd like to say, fuck you.
And I thought, I don't know. I don't know why I didn't expect that. I don't know whether I hate the move more or I hate the fact that I didn't predict this. And a lot of these other pardons matter significantly, but the Fauci one just pissed me off the most. And not just because he probably perjured himself many times. Like, what is the criminal activity that I think is now being excused? Well, there's the perjury. He lied before Congress many times. I think that's demonstrated. But I think the legal issue is much more significant than that. Personally, I think Fauci was closely involved in the development and potentially the release of the virus. But certainly the development. I think he violated U.S. law against gain-of-function research. He at least skirted it. And he facilitated it at the Wuhan lab using U.S. money. I think there's a potential big legal issue there. But most generally, like even beyond the law, just a guy who is deserving of justice or needs to be brought justice. Nobody did more to go after the basic rights of Americans and convince everybody to be completely crazy for the better part of 2 years and beyond than Dr. Fauci did. And meanwhile, he collected the largest government salary, a massive pension that he now lives on. Well, he ruined everyone else's lives. And regardless of what the statutes may say about that, or a federal prosecutor might say about that, protecting him from responsibility in that symbolic way, very irritating. So my Monday morning started off wrong. But what does the Fauci pardon actually say? Well, you're going to see a theme here when we go through these pardons. He got the full Hunter. I think pretty much everybody that Biden pardoned did. What was Fauci pardoned for? Really, well, anything, any federal offenses going all the way back to that particular year, 2014. What was Fauci doing way back in 2014? Maybe he was circumventing that U.S. ban on gain-of-function research in the decade prior. Something like that. Now, the only limit on this thing on this pardon is things related to his official role. So NIAID director, White House coronavirus task force member, White House COVID-19 response team. As long as Fauci was just doing his job, he's good. And CNN reporter Dana Bash says she spoke with Fauci, and Fauci is very appreciative for this protection against any wrongful prosecution that may come his way, because, of course, he did nothing wrong.
I talked briefly to Anthony Fauci, who got one of the pardons, who said he is very appreciative of what President Biden did. He said, and again, he has done nothing wrong, but there are baseless accusations against him in his view, and he has been very worried about what it will mean for him and even more so for his family.
Yes, won't somebody please think of Dr. Fauci's family, just like he thought of your family while he was advocating for policies to ruin your business and telling your family, hey, don't share Christmas together if you're unvaccinated. If someone comes to your family member comes over for Christmas unvaccinated, tell them to get the hell out. For Fauci, it's family over everything. Just not your family, of course. Biden also pardoned Mark Milley, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Presumably this is to protect Milley from issues related to his communications with a Chinese general before the 2020 election. He's alleged to have made some commitments about the U.S. not attacking China and telling them that he would potentially preempt Trump if Trump were to be aggressive with China, that sort of stuff. Now, of course, the problem is that sort of discussion is for the commander-in-chief, or at least setting the policy is for the commander-in-chief. It's not for Mark Milley. So what was this pardon about? Oh, who knows? Likewise, all the way back to, wait, which one's this? I can't even remember here. Where's my Milley pardon? This one's the Milley pardon. Yeah, all the way back to 2014, likewise. And it covers military law, not just federal law. And anything to do with his job as part of his roles as chief of staff of the Army or chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Even if the job was treason, he's covered. Don't worry. Same thing for the members of the January 6th committee. They're all covered for anything they did related to their activities while serving on the committee. Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger, Adam Schiff, all of them. Even if they were abusing their office to run a sham investigation for political purposes, they're just doing their job. They got screwed, though. They didn't get the 2014 treatment. It's limited to just their role on the committee, which of course started back in 2021, I believe. Biden. Now, this is where, Biden actually pardoned all of his siblings, 5 of his family members, and not just his siblings, but their spouses too. His brother James, James's wife Sarah Jones Biden, Joe's sister, Valerie Biden Owens, her husband, John T. Owens, Frank Biden, otherwise known as Francis W. Biden here, Joe's older brother. They all get the full and unconditional pardons for any nonviolent federal offenses all the way back to 2014. They get the full Hunter, no qualifications at all, just no violence, which is very convenient because all the crimes or at least unethical behaviors they are suspected of or potentially related to financial issues, fraud issues, that kind of stuff. Corrupt things. It's not related to punching a guy in the face or shooting somebody or something like that. Now, as I described in a video when Joe pardoned Hunter, the legality of this stuff is actually somewhat questionable. When I say this stuff, I mean these unconditional pardons, anything like over the course of an entire decade. Outside of Nixon, nobody has been given this broad or sweeping of a pardon in U.S. history. Pardons traditionally are attached to a specific charge or a specific crime or at least a specific event. And in fairness, some of these are attached to, if not an event, like a circumstance. In these cases, we have sometimes specific roles, but they span over a decade. Okay, they're very open-ended. In the case of Biden's family members, it's anything and everything outside of violence. And it is true the president's pardon power constitutionally is mostly unqualified. It deals with federal crimes only, no get out of impeachment free with it. However, the Supreme Court has applied additional restrictions to the pardon power pursuant to common law or tradition. You can't pardon future crimes, for example. You can't give somebody future immunity. If you can't give somebody future immunity, why not? Well, it's because the crime is undefined. In these cases, though, the crime is also undefined. That's why there is a legal debate on this. Again, with reference to common law and English tradition and what was meant by pardon power at the time of constitutional ratification. Generally speaking, dating back centuries in English tradition, pardon power was understood to be for specifically identified crimes, not just anything and everything that might have happened in a decade's time. And I get it. The argument that the constitutional framers wanted qualifications on the pardon power, but they didn't put them in there, that I get that argument has some problems. That if they wanted qualifications on the pardon power, they would have included them. Frankly, I think that's probably right. What I'm saying isn't maybe less of a legal argument. It's just to note that what we're watching is ahistorical in its corruption. It generally has not happened in American history, and it generally didn't happen in English history prior that the American tradition was built on. And some of the hypocrisy is just face-melting, man. Of course, Adam Schiff he received a preemptive pardon from Biden for his actions on the January 6th committee, as mentioned. Remember when Trump was leaving office in 2020, there was fear and speculation that Trump was going to pardon his family or his inner circle preemptively. And that would be just a shocking demonstration of corruption. And then he didn't do that. And 4 years later, guess what Joe Biden did? Well, listen to Adam Schiff on Joy Reid's MSNBC show in late 2020. Who is he talking about here? Is he talking about Trump or is he talking about Joe Biden?
Have you ever heard of somebody getting a preemptive pardon who was innocent of all crime? Who's just an innocent person? Have you ever heard of that? Just somebody getting a blanket pardon and they're an innocent person?
But no, I think that it's an effort not only to prospectively pardon people for things they have not yet been charged with and may never be charged with, but also it's the president's own family. It's people that have been covering up for the president in addition to his own family. This is the nature of those the president has surrounded himself with, including his family. And that is, it's been essentially a den of thieves environment. And so I think the president used this as his way of trying to protect those that have protected him.
Wow, who knew Adam Schiff would be the first innocent man in history to receive a pardon? It's not the way he's described. Oh, it's not just that these pardons are open-ended and prospective. It's that he's protecting his own family with them. And then Biden does that 4 years later, and Schiff is actually accepting it. Schiff is receiving exactly what he's talking about. Now, in a little bit of undeserved fairness for Adam Schiff did issue a statement saying, these pardons that are coming out, one of which is protecting me, I think maybe these are unnecessary and unwise because this is bad precedent going forward. But as far as I understand, Adam Schiff is still accepting the pardon. He doesn't have to. He's within his rights to say, I don't accept the pardon because this is wrong. Maybe he will, although I doubt it. I wish I was still in a time where all of this was shocking. I'd like to go back to that. Now it's just routine, and guys like this get a promotion from the House to the Senate. All right, I'm right against the top of the hour. Sorry for my slight distraction there. I was texting Batman because he's supposed to come in at the top of the hour, but I'm going to be a little bit late, and that extends to our callers too. So my apology, but I appreciate your patience. I will get to your calls. I'll get to your super chats momentarily, but I want to get to a couple stories before I do. I regret to inform you, as I said at the top of the hour, that a female police officer has struck again, and this one is actually much worse than the others that I've seen. And we've seen prior examples like poor performance in foot pursuits of suspects. And yeah, there was that female police officer in Minnesota who was trying to tase a guy, but she grabbed her Glock instead and shot him. In this case, in Jacksonville, Florida, the police officer accidentally shot a guy with his own gun. How the hell does that happen? Well, it started with a routine traffic stop. This was in Jacksonville on December 13th. Jason Arrington is the driver in this case. He apparently ran a red light around 5 p.m. A trio of police officers pulled him over. Sean Lowry is of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, made the stop. Mindy Cardwell and Austin Weipert assisted. And assisted what or assisted how? That's a good question for Mindy, because she didn't assist much. Arrington, the guy they pulled over, he was cooperative. He informed Officer Lowry, who stopped him, informed him on confrontation that he had a handgun on his person. And he told Lowry that he doesn't have a concealed carry permit. But Florida is a constitutional carry state, so that's not a problem as long as he's not a felon, which, as I understand, he is not. So possession and carrying, perfectly legal. Now, police decided they should remove his gun for safety, so they asked him to step out of the car. And, step out of the car. We're going to send the chick cop over to take your gun off of you. It was a .45 caliber Glock, which does not have a safety on it beyond its trigger system and the holster. And so when Mindy grabbed the gun out of his holster, she put pressure on the trigger, causing a discharge into Arrington's right leg. There were 2 angles of body cam footage. Here's the first one. And remember, Raju Mahan at YouTube, he doesn't like gunshot sounds, so I have to replace them with the honk honk.
You got anything crazy in the car? Yeah. What do you got? A gun. You got a gun? Mm-hmm. You do? All right. Where's that? It's on you? Okay. As long as you're cool. And... I'm chill. You have concealed carry and all that good stuff? No, you don't? All right. You're not a convicted felon, right? Nothing? I do everything, whatever. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is, just for my safety, your safety, I'm going to have you step out. All right. Fair enough? And we're just going to remove the pistol from you. And then we're going to run your license, make sure everything's good, and I'm going to send you on your way. He's very compliant. He does have a pistol on him, so we're going to take him out from that side, remove the pistol, and we'll go from there. I appreciate it, man, being very honest. Oh, yeah. Oh, shit. You okay? Hey. Oh, my God, bro. Go down. You okay? You got shot in the leg. Rescue 1068.
There is one more angle of body cam footage from the other male cop.
Where's your pistol at? On my side. Okay. Just put your hands on the top of the vehicle for me. I appreciate it, man, being very honest. Oh, shit. You okay? Put the gun down. Put the gun down. You okay? No. Hey, rescue 1068. Let's go. Rescue 1068. Hey, man, come here.
The American people are tired of women.
Hard not to be when they're shooting you in the leg with your own gun. Now, Arrington, the driver who was shot, he was taken to the hospital and is apparently going to be okay. He says he's since recovered, I guess. He says his job is more difficult to do. He works with heavy equipment like cranes and forklifts, but he is okay. He told investigators that Mindy jerked the weapon several times, causing the discharge. So Mindy jerked just a little too hard. Write your own joke there. There was an investigation into Mindy's behavior. She has been charged with incompetence and fired. As far as I gather, in this situation, the charge just refers to the grounds for termination, is my understanding. It's not like a criminal charge. And remember the Glock case in Minnesota, that was Kim Potter, the female police officer who she thought she was tasing a guy who was taking off from an arrest, and instead she grabbed her Glock and shot him. She actually went to prison for a year and change. But I don't think there are any criminal charges against Mindy so far. She has been working in an off-duty capacity, according to the reporting, or she had been until she got fired. They kept her down at the office, jerking where she belongs, I guess, like that other chick cop who banged the whole precinct. Remember her? The incident has actually created a new policy at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Now officers will not disarm a compliant person who is lawfully carrying. They'll just let you hang on to your gun. And it is just horribly ironic that the effort to make the situation safer resulted in a guy getting shot. But lastly, speaking of controversial female roles best avoided, how about that bishop lady in Washington, D.C.? If you didn't see, Trump and company attended the traditional inauguration prayer service at the Washington National Cathedral yesterday, and during her sermon, Reverend or Bishop or whatever her title is, Marianne Edgar Buddy, urged Trump to have mercy on trans children and illegal immigrants.
There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives. The vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away.
Shut up, silly woman.
I wish he had got right up and just yelled that at her. Now, it's not this lady's first time grandstanding about Trump. She's done it often before. I'm not sure how she got picked for this. Is there presidential discretion? Who decides who's doing this? But yes, of course, she has to make the event about herself, or at least her politics, less about the point of the event, which is a godly prayer for the president, for the country. Instead, pushing modern politics that have nothing to do with God or scripture or what the event is all about. Now, Trump has demanded an apology from this woman. Of course, he's not going to get it, but he did put out a statement on Truth Social that not only was she inappropriate, but she was boring and uninspiring, not very good at her job. She owes not just Trump, but the church an apology, he says. And of course, she's going to act like this really has nothing to do with politics. It's about being a good person and treating people like Jesus would. What does she do? She rushes straight to CNN to talk more about it.
I was also, frankly, as you do in every sermon, speaking to everyone who was listening through that one-on-one conversation with the president, reminding us all that in the people that are frightened in our country, the two groups of people that I mentioned are our fellow human beings, and that they have been portrayed in all throughout the political campaign in the harshest of lights that I wanted to counter as gently as I could with a reminder of their humanity and their place in our wider community. I wanted to say, there is room for mercy. There's room for a broader compassion.
And she says it right there. I didn't, or I don't like Trump's politics, so I countered with my politics. Like this is a debate or a campaign event. It is not. This is a national prayer event. It's about God. It's about scripture. And for this lady to install her own politics over the purpose of the event, it's not just contrary to the point of the event. It's not just contrary to tradition. I think it's fair to say it's contrary to God himself. It's one thing to hate Trump's politics. A lot of people do. That's fine. You can do that. But to put on this cloak of godliness, I don't think for its own sake. I think just to help you in your political debate, that is doing what? It's using God as a tool. After all, what's more important here? Is it God or is it the politics? What is serving what? Do the politics serve God or does God serve the politics? I think she's pretty clear about that if you listen. But maybe we'll get into that a little bit more with the callers or any of the other news items this evening. But I got to catch up with a couple super chatters so I don't leave you guys hanging. And then we'll get right to Batman and your calls. Again, appreciate everybody's patience. Let's see what's going on over on Tippy and YouTube. Mike DeWine's shit-eating grin, one of the many great usernames in the chat. Appreciate it. Good to hear from you. No idea if this is possible, but since cartels are now designated as terrorist groups, does that mean officials or cops who are on the cartel payroll are considered traitors? Do we need to invest in rope futures? I don't know what that entails. And actually, I don't know how serious. Are you talking about? I guess if I understand correctly, you're making the accusation that there are U.S. officials. I know it's very corrupt in Mexico, obviously, and the cartels basically run government there. But are you saying that we have to? I guess I'm curious, is your question about Mexican officials or U.S. officials? Now, it wouldn't surprise me to learn if there aren't formal cartel allies in government, as in like they actually have an agreement and a payment plan. There are de facto allies in our government, of course, because that's why that's why the border is the way it is. But yeah, I guess I don't know this terrorist designation thing. I never know what that actually means. What does that entail? Like we've declared them terrorists. What does that mean from a law enforcement perspective? That is not an area of knowledge I have, but yeah, is it going to implicate people in government? Well, people have been getting away with a lot of bullshit on the border for a long time, so I won't hold my breath. But thank you for supporting the show. Griff Nizzle says, simping for the ADL now. Matt cucking for the little hats confirmed. Voldecunt was right. Voldecunt? Can I even say that word? Come on. I know you're being tongue-in-cheek about me being tongue-in-cheek. I wasn't simping for the ADL. I'm saying the ADL missed Elon's clear swastika gesture, which is impossible to even do. I do think it's funny when the ADL is the voice of sanity in the room, as they kind of were this week, at least relatively. Herbert Loper, allegedly the VP is related to me in some way, and my shitlib aunt is losing her mind. I am Loving the start to this year. So J.D. Vance. Originally, I was thinking Kamala Harris, but J.D. Vance. Oh, man. What do you do if you find out you're related to Satan himself? Thank you, Herbert. I appreciate it. Griff Nizzle. CNN fretting over Trump pardons. Suspiciously quiet about 8,000 Biden pardons, including Fauci and Milley, as always. You don't hate the media enough. The sheer volume of Biden pardons is really, in fact, I think he's the record, is he not? He's the most pardons of any president, or is it commutations? I can't remember. One of those, because he did these mass pardons or commutations late in his term, and it's in the thousands. If you look at the history, just in volume, he's kind of out of line too. You're right. Thank you, Griff Nizzle. Daniel Yeager, you think libertarian and libertine get conflated along those moral lines? Well, yes, with my kind of surface level understanding of the terms. Let me, libertine definition being a person, especially a man, who behaves without moral principles or a sense of responsibility, especially in sexual matters. Okay, yeah, this is what I'm getting at. Like, do I think that a libertarian philosophy as applied to government is good? Generally, yes. Do I think that libertarianism potentially lacks valuable moral philosophy? Maybe. I'm not saying all libertarians are degenerate. I'm saying, okay, the reason it's valid when you look at its relationship with government, in my opinion, is because the job of government is a little bit different than our job as individuals to live good lives. The job of government is to secure our rights from being violated either by the state or by each other. That is to say, making sure someone doesn't come and take my shit, making sure someone doesn't come and steal or kill my family, all that stuff. But the job of government isn't really to teach me what is a life well lived. That is to say, there are all sorts of ways that I could live my life, not violating the rights of others, not abusing others, not going to your house and stealing, not going to your house and killing your family, but just being a degenerate in my own home, like abusing drugs, like being promiscuous, like not getting married, building a family, not realizing my full potential. When I say degenerate and immoral, you know, sometimes that comes off as like a high horse or like holier than thou. It's really about not fulfilling your true potential. And that's a shame. It's a tragedy for anybody. Degenerate behavior, yes, there's a judgment factor, but it's really about a sadness or the tragedy of a person not fulfilling the best possible life that they could live. And I don't think the government's role is to tell you what that is or to facilitate your journey on that path. I think that's where the church comes in. That's where family comes in. What is a life well lived? You don't look to the government for that. You just make sure the government's job is making sure people don't mess with you while you're on that path. But they don't really tell you what that path is. That's why I say that, like, the libertarian philosophy as applied to government, leave me alone, is generally great, because that's really what the government should mostly do: leave you alone and make sure people are leaving each other alone. But they don't tell you how to live a good life, and that's important. So that's why I sometimes get a little frustrated with the libertarian community, as you're saying, Daniel. Appreciate it. As in, like, I'll clarify that last point too. As long as I'm not hurting anybody is a baseline moral performance, I guess. Like, yes, that's great. You're not abusing others, but there are many things that a life well lived should do above and beyond not hurting others. And not all choices in that pursuit are equal. Some lives are very poorly lived because they fail to realize their potential. Others are excellently lived because they get as close to their full potential as possible. And we'd be wise to recognize those distinctions. Long Dong John, this is the last one I'll take on YouTube and Tippy for now. Fun fact, Ross Ulbricht spent more time in jail than anyone who traded something illicit on his website. Well, yeah, I suppose there's that fact too. Like, the people actually engaging in the selling the illegal things or engaging in the illegal behavior were not treated as harshly. All right, just a few on Rumble here. Thank you guys on YouTube and Tippy. Dangerous Spaces, our friendly call screener. I want to thank the Dems. If the party with members who scream death to Israel didn't highlight that Elon is a Nazi. Highlight. Very clever. We might inadvertently get political expressions that declare a hatred for Jews. Yes. It is funny how in, like, Democrat circles, they, like, in one context, they're buddy with Hitler on those questions. And in another context, if they can soak victimhood out of it, then suddenly, I guess they're all about the Holocaust again or whatever, Likes to watch. Can't watch live going to the gym. At least I'll have something to listen to at work tomorrow, though. Just wanted to show some support and say hi to you in the chat. Cheers. Thank you, likes to watch, and all the best at work. I really appreciate your support. All right. GR says, hey, my Chattanooga. That's right. You can still say that town. Happy inauguration week. Did you get the videos? I sent them to you on mattis.gay. They make for some very happy viewing. At least if you're a Constitution-loving patriot, at least. I did see your email earlier today. I haven't looked at it yet, but it is in my inbox, and I will be taking a look. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to pause there. Let me see what I got. Odyssey, Blanket's sending me the memes always. Do you have any favorite moments from the inauguration? You know, I have to confess I didn't watch a lot of the inauguration. Not because I don't care. It's all great. Like, to have a little bit of optimism for the country is very welcome over the last 4 years. I actually have a lot of personal things going on right now. Full disclosure, like my car broke down, and so my family and I are trying to figure out what the replacement is going to be. And so it's just been like a very errand-oriented early week for me, so I've been distracted in that way. But there's a part of me that is just, I have such a sigh of relief for what has happened, that Biden is gone and Trump is really president, that I'm just like, it's not because I don't care. I do care a lot, but I'm just like, oh, awesome. I'm going to tune out for a minute just because it's been so discouraging for the last 4 years that the encouragement is the ability to look away. So I kind of did a little bit this week, but I've seen some of the festivities. Hard R N word. Fuck those fucking pardons. You don't get away with evil shit just because some evil fucker says Ali Ali Oxenfree. Well, that's between them and God now. So we'll see how that goes. And here's hoping for justice one way or another. Okay. We're good on D-Live. All right. I've left Batman hanging for way too long. So let me get to Batman. We'll bring in some of your calls, and I will be right back.
Stand back and stand by.
I am sorry for making you wait so long. My judge of time is so terrible, and there's so much going on in the news, and it's like, I need to get better at this. So I appreciate your patience, man.
Oh, not a problem.
Anyway, let's get right into the callers. Let's see what we got. Right. We got Vong up first. Vong, are you there?
Hello?
Oh.
How's it going?
Matt, you're muted. Matt,
hold on. Speaking of needing to get better at, technically producing my own show, when am I ever going to have a duct tape free episode? Of course, it wouldn't be my show if it was free of duct tape. Sorry, bro. Right.
Yeah. Hey, no worries, man. Part of the charm, as they say.
Well, at least there's some left. What's on your mind?
Well, I bet you can guess. You've talked to me enough. You know exactly what I'm calling in to talk about, don't you, Matt?
I have no idea, actually. No. Pardons?
I am appalled.
Okay.
At this ridiculous, just bullcrap of people still, for some reason, thinking that it is possible for women to be valid recipients of the sacrament of orders.
Yes. I forgot. You are very technical about these things. So of course, okay. So you are talking about the bishop lady who lectured Trump.
Okay, first off, she's not a bishop because she cannot receive.
Okay, the air
sacrament orders. It is not
quotes.
possible.
Yeah, the air quotes bishop.
The woman who is pretending to be a member of the clergy, and in doing so directly violating the explicit commands given to us in Scripture.
Do you know why she was picked or who's in charge of putting her in that role? Obviously, it doesn't seem like anyone on Trump's team would want that.
Isn't she the one who would be in charge of that because she's so high ranking?
Is it just like the church's determination? Is that what happened there?
I don't know,
have no idea.
But what I'm quite clear on is that whoever it was who decided that she would be the one to I'm not even going to say offer a prayer service, because all she really did was parade around in clothing that does not belong to women. That is, women should not be dressed like that.
She's the tranny of the clergy, is what you're saying. It's a costume.
Well, she's got the haircut for it.
Okay.
Why?
Yes, but she was clearly chosen by someone who has never even read Scripture. Honestly.
Well, what does the Scripture have to say about trans kids? Or illegal immigrants?
And I quote.
Oh.
But if any man should dress as a woman or woman dress as a man, let it be known that they are an abomination in the eyes of the Lord your God, unquote.
Jeez. Is that's a real Scripture, quote from Scripture? That's a real Scripture. It makes me sound very intelligent. Clearly my Bible study's going well. That's a quote.
How do you spell eagles?
I've done better than the Philadelphia mayor. That's true. Thank you.
I mean, that's Old Testament. Yes, not New Testament. Now
Okay.
that said, the discernment of what from the Old Testament applies to those of us under the New Covenant is well understood, but sometimes a little bit contentious between different people, so I won't get into that. However, what's more applicable here is what is said in the New Testament about women in this exact kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
When I just paused here, I had to take off my hat because, again, I actually have read this stuff. Reading from the first epistle of St. Paul to Timothy, chapter 2, verse 11. Let the woman learn in silence with all subjection, but I suffer not a woman to teach nor to use authority over the man, but to be in silence, unquote.
Sounds welcome relative to what I just heard.
Look,
what you're saying is there is a scriptural basis for.
Shut up, silly woman.
That's commandment.
I was thinking exactly that.
Yes. Yes, you are exactly correct. That is exactly what the scriptures say. Shut up, silly woman. And that's what I'm saying to this woman. You are scandalizing the faithful and the Church of God itself by pretending to be a member of the clergy when it is not physically or what's the term? Not physically or spiritually possible for that to be the case. All right, and you are causing damage to the faith of all people in doing so.
Oh, she definitely damaged my faith. I've been on a great journey so far, but she set me down a few pegs after that one for sure. No, obviously, I don't think that she. To your point, I don't think that she represents or is faithful to a lot of teachings. She strikes me as the sort of person that picks and chooses. But on this topic, obviously you're familiar with it. You've looked into it. As far as the scriptural rejection of women in this role, is there a lot of insight as to why? Now, I can guess why. I'm not asking as though I haven't just been given a good demonstration, but I'm asking for what does the scripture say about the reasoning?
Okay, so there are a few things that I have to explain in terms of this. So, first off, first we have to, the first thing I should say is Scripture and sacred tradition are yes, where we start. Do recall, however, that the application of logic to the principles contained therein is also an entirely valid and indeed necessary method of discovering what is true about this. So don't forget that, because that's very important. We can't just look at the words on the page and say, "Oh, these mean exactly what they say," and not think about them. And I know it's not what you're trying to do, but I just have to say that because there are some rather interesting quote unquote Christians who do that, and it goes bad places. Now that said, so the sacrament of order is, you might have heard the term holy orders, right, in terms of like ordaining priests and stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Properly, this is referred to as the sacrament of order.
Okay.
Now, order in this case refers actually not so much to, not what one usually thinks of as in like, law and order, or things being organized, that kind of thing. It's similar, but what it really means is it's giving everything its proper place, and this means it is a relation, a relationship. All right, so it's used to designate, what the relation is founded upon, and thus generally what it really means is like rank. Okay.
Okay.
So in this case, there's sacerdotal orders, which is the priesthood, right? There's episcopal orders, that's being consecrated a bishop, right? There's also holy orders in terms of the diaconate, so deacons, right? And that is another degree of the sacrament of orders. What we need to understand, first of all, is that the sacrament of orders is not three different sacraments, that is, ordination to the diaconate, ordination to the priesthood, and consecration to the episcopate. No, it is one sacrament, and it has 3 degrees therein. The reason for this is that what happens in holy orders is that the man being ordained is given, how do I put this? Is being given access, so to speak. It is not a perfect word, but think about it that way. Is being given access to some measure of.
I may have asked a question that's too complicated. Is there a Cliff Notes version?
It's not much more than this.
Okay, all right.
This is most of it.
All right.
So it's just that being given access to a certain measure of the power and authority that comes with the fullness of priesthood.
Mm-hmm.
The whole of this is found in the episcopate. There's a smaller degree of it that is possessed by priests, and there's an even smaller degree possessed by deacons. So it's the same source of power, right? But each step down receives a smaller share in it, so it's a smaller degree of the fullness. But it is one sacrament, in the same way that, like a king has the authority, and then the authority flows from him to his barons, and then to the nobles beneath them, and they'll have less authority, but it comes from the king. So
all right.
That's the sacrament of orders, and it cannot be bestowed upon women because, well, we have no reason to believe that we have no reason to believe that we even have the authority to do so. Recall they're being given access to power and authority. That comes from God.
Right.
It does not come from men, that comes from God. Now, when Christ did this, right, every single time we see him confer such authority upon those of us who are only human, that is, we are not human and divine as Christ was, but those who are only human, is only ever given to men. So it is theoretically possible that the Lord could at some point give unto us the authority, or as would be properly referred to, the faculty, to confer orders upon women. However, at this point in time, there is no reason whatsoever to believe that that can be done, and as such, we must not do it, because we would be playing, we wouldn't just be playing with fire, we'd be playing with hellfire.
You'd be playing God,
taking risk of the salvation of souls.
And bitches be cray, as determined by God himself. So,
we'd be playing games with salvation of people's souls.
I get what you're saying.
People's salvation is on the line.
Yeah, I understand. I appreciate that explanation. Batman, do you have any thoughts on the air quotes bishop lady or any of the scriptural basis?
As soon as I saw her haircut, I knew exactly what we were going to get.
She didn't have to say a word.
She is wearing she's wearing the uniform, right? the uniform of degenerate leftoids. So big shock.
All right. Vong, did you have any closing thought before I let you go?
Just that to anyone who tries to argue that women are valid recipients of orders, please stop calling yourselves Christians. You're just rejecting Christ by saying that.
Come on, man.
All right.
Please and thank you.
Thank you, Vong. I appreciate your call.
Take care.
Have a good one.
Your mic is coming in awfully soft for me, Batman. Are you able to bump that at all? Otherwise, I can bump you.
I'm not exactly sure. I don't know what's going on here. My computer's acting a little funky today.
I think I got you bumped about right though.
Okay.
If people in the chat or Tim, let me know if and I guess I could just bring Tim in here. But if Batman's coming in too soft, let me know. I'll see what I can do. But I think I got you all right.
All right. That one was way over my head.
Not a scripturally knowledgeable guy or what? What do you mean?
Oh, not at all. No. So that I had no idea what he was talking about the entire time, being honest.
I guess we've never discussed it as far as I recall, or maybe we have going way back in our call-in show conversations. But what is your faith perspective, if I may ask, and if I may not, that's perfectly fine too.
We've discussed it, but it was like years ago. I'm sort of, the way that I would describe myself is I'm waiting to be convinced. I did attend the Bible study a few times.
That's right. I remember now. It was like in the early phases, right? When we were just getting started.
Yeah. The first few shows.
Yeah. Well, you feel like you're open though? You're open to the evidence, or you're open to...
I'm open to being convinced. I just haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, that's kind of the path that I took, and obviously I've embraced the title, and I'm trying to do the thing. I'm trying to embrace what it means to be Christian and to be, well, I don't know. I mean, obviously I have a lot to learn, but in the way you're describing, I feel like when I opened my, when I just became open to being convinced, a lot of that stuff entered my life in a way that I'm convinced it was supposed to, and it's hard for me to imagine.
For you, it was fated. It's in your name.
Yeah. I just think that path has led me to connect with a lot of people who are supposed to be a part of my life. And it's hard for me to imagine what my life would be like without them. And I think all of that stuff's for a reason. I'm not like scriptural citation guy and rules of the church guy, but I am, moral order to the world guy. And I am things happen for a reason guy. And the more I've gone down that path, the more I believe that that's exactly the path I'm supposed to be on. And so
I definitely feel like I've been moving in that direction, particularly given the way that the world has gone. And even you can see it in politics. Like Trump moves his head at the absolute last moment and misses getting shot in the head.
Yeah, there you go. If you don't believe in God after that, then get the hell out of here.
Well, I'm sure he does now for sure.
Yeah, I'd be convinced if I was him. All right, let's talk to. Tim's in the live room, but I don't know why. Well, whatever. Tim can.
Sorry, I was just letting you guys have your conversation. I'm reading the chat. No one's saying that there's any issues with the sound. Batman's maybe a little bit quieter.
Okay.
But not so much that it's like a really serious problem.
I can bump him a little bit more.
A couple of people, and when you mentioned a couple of people said, no, it sounds fine to me. So I think it's maybe a little bit quieter on the actual stream, but again,
I'll give him just a little tiny bump. All right.
More than works. So.
Thank you for your help. Appreciate it.
No worries.
Okay, Golden Leaf is up next. Golden Leaf, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
What's in your mind, sir?
Well, I want to take a look at I think we all know, Elon Musk and the famous Roman salute.
Yeah.
Or what they think is the Roman salute.
Okay, so you don't think he was doing a genuine Nazi tribute?
No.
Oh.
The way you're supposed to do it versus what he did. First of all, you don't put your hand to your chest like full hand. You do kind of like the way I could describe it, like imagine you're trying to karate chop your
I'll try to reenact it as you say. Okay, so I go like this.
No. No, please don't. No.
I don't mind. I've done it before. Half of it's going to be cropped off the screen anyway. You give me
True.
lessons and I will try to act it out. Go ahead.
Even I'm horrible at that. I don't know, but I know the
You said
problem
do
was
this, right? Karate chop your chest. I'm doing it.
Yeah,
you hear that?
it's
That's the
that.
karate chop.
Yeah, it's that, and then you raise your arm to like a 45-degree angle.
Right. So it's like that. It's a double move with emphasis.
God damn it, Max.
But isn't that what Elon Musk did? Didn't he go like,
No,
my heart goes out to you? Isn't that
Yeah,
what he did?
But when he said my heart goes out to you, he put his full hand on his heart.
Okay, so it's like this, right? Like he's groping himself rather than like the side hand thing. Is that what you're talking about? It's like
yes,
like your index finger is pressing into your chest instead of your whole hand.
Yes, he's using his whole hand to symbolize his heart, and I'm pretty sure I think because Elon Musk is known for SpaceX, and the funny thing that I think most people realize, but I know liberals don't say is Musk is on the spectrum. I don't think people realize that.
He might be. He definitely is kind of a weird guy.
I think he was. I think there like reports from family and stuff like, yeah, he was a little special. You know how like people are addicted to trains? He just likes rockets.
Yeah, maybe.
It's just two different likes. Some people like to look at trains. He likes to look at rockets being shot up into space. And I think what he was, my heart goes out to you was hand on chest to show where the heart is, and then soaring it off like a rocket. Like a rocket taking off.
It was a tribute to SpaceX or a tribute to space travel.
I mean, it probably was. You've seen how successful he is now. Like what? A second booster has been successfully returned back to the launch area.
Do you think? And okay, Elon Musk is also a trolly guy, though, and I will admit. Okay, do I think Elon Musk was trying to praise Nazis or something like that? No.
Kyle Hitler, baby.
I don't think he was doing that. But do I think that he's aware of the hypersensitivity of the left on these issues and maybe might enjoy trolling them a little bit? I don't know. It seemed like it was in the moment, but I could see him like planning that. It's like, Trump won. I got to go up there and do like a plausible Heil and see what they say.
To really go with more trolling, he should have done it at the Madison Square Garden. Just really hone
That's
it.
right, because that was the actual Nazi rally, because the Nazis were there once.
Yeah, and they compared Trump to that. And I do believe, I think it was also Trump, because for God's sakes, the dude now owns Twitter and probably sees like, oh my God, they get so...
I've never thought about this because, of course, he does have the keys. And Elon Musk, in fairness, I think is being criticized for what does look like some somewhat censorship-happy behavior on X. Like, it's not quite the free speech platform that he had advertised, but okay. It's still better than it used to be.
Only if you insult his gaming skills.
Yeah. But I think just Elon Musk should contribute to the world's healing by banning the ADL and banning the SPLC for their hate speech. And kick them off. They deserve at least like a year banned off the platform or more. Isn't fair?
Yeah, that is totally fair. And, I wish that someone that probably listens to our show or is close enough to Musk be like, hey, Musk, you should do this for the funnies.
Or just for a day. Be like, I'm punishing the ADL for all of their hateful commentary about others.
Like when he did, I think it was, I don't know if it's still there, but I think there's a yellow check mark on journalists. As
the ADL has that? Just journalists.
Oh, X does, I think.
Yeah, X. I don't know if he still has it, but I know like if you're a journalist or news agency, instead of like the blue check mark, you're verified to show that you're still verified as a news agency. Instead of blue, it's yellow in reference to yellow journalism.
No, it's gold. It's gold in recognition that they are the gold standard of informing the American citizen.
No, informing on the American citizen.
Yeah, maybe. They probably have a lot of those relationships too.
Speaking of informant, I don't know if you see much of the meltdown. CNN had an interview with someone who was the son of one of the Jan Sixers who turned in his father to the FBI, and now he's saying he's scared and everything.
Yeah.
But he still likes dad. He's like, oh, I still love my dad. It's like, no, you don't. If you loved your dad, you wouldn't have turned him into the FBI, sent him to jail, had his life ruined, and being told that, yes, your dad is a terrorist because the news media told you to.
Yeah, you can make mistakes. I don't know. I think that he's, maybe I'm foolish, but the regret he was expressing did seem kind of genuine to me.
I think once he realized that almost all family members, I don't think there's one family member that's behind him, but all family members were on the side of his father and basically said, yeah, you're a traitor for this because it was, because I don't know how his father was arrested. I don't know if the FBI agents just said, hey, we don't want to arrest you in front of your wife and stuff, or maybe they did. Maybe they just came in there full on, kick open the door, arrest him right then and there, full force, because they thought, he's a threat to democracy.
There's an interesting question there because, of course, that theme of family integrity is so important, and I think the ability to forgive your family when they make mistakes is so important. But I wonder if I was like that guy's sisters that he referenced, where they are still on the side of dad. They presumably think that their brother betrayed the family by turning dad in. Would I be able to forgive a family member who betrayed my family in that way? That would be a hard level of forgiveness. Let's say you were that guy's brother. That guy turned in your dad for bullshit January 6th stuff. Do you think you could forgive him, or would you consider that like you're dead to me type stuff?
Once I found out that he was the one, I would say no. Because I would look at him and say, why? You didn't want to hear dad out. You didn't know what he did. Instead, you just looked at what the media said and you just happily turned in for what? A couple of likes on Reddit? What, you want your fucking Reddit goal?
He did get $158,000. So there was that. But
if I found out he got money too, I just look at him.
Well, that makes it worse, I guess he'd say like, "Oh, my life was ruined. I had to start over," or whatever. I mean, that does make it worse.
Well, it makes him like an anti-family mercenary. I mean, functionally, right?
Yeah, that's well put.
God forbid I'm gonna say this. I hope this guy never finds a wife, because let's say if he does find a girlfriend and maybe he's thinking about marrying her, I hope the father looks at him and says, "You're not marrying my daughter. I know what you did to your own father. I'm not letting that into my family."
Well, by the look of it, he might be on his way to becoming his own wife. Now, I'm not saying he looks like a tranny, but let me.
I was told he looks like a 90s school shooter.
Right, so he's good friends with Tim Walz, right?
Just get him like a skater cap and
become friends with school shooters.
Yeah, basically. I mean, yeah, if that was my brother, God forbid, and this happened to my father, and I realized, dad spent this long in prison, even though he never really did anything wrong. Oh yeah, I definitely would not forgive him. I would only forgive him if my dad is the one to say he's willing to give him another chance.
Wow.
If
okay.
Not, because dad is the one that got hurt the most from this. He had to go through this process. He had to be arrested, put in handcuffs, be in a jail to where he was probably treated like a terrorist or a very bad person, even though he wasn't. So unless the father says, "Son, I may want to give you another chance, but we're going to start off at square one." If not, I'm not forgiving him until the father says.
I think that's fair.
I don't know how you ever trust him again after that. Like, that is such an egregious thing. Like, it's one thing if you punch your brother in the face or something like that. Like, that can be resolved, right? But when you start involving the authorities and prison and functionally threaten the rest of your father's life, and got paid for it, again, that's a key factor in my opinion. How do you trust them ever again?
Especially if I know that my dad, all he did was walk around or walk inside and walk back out, and that's all he did. And my brother thought that's the worst thing ever. No, it's definitely not forgivable. And from what I heard from what he said about his father and his mother with the right-wing militia that he's a part of, he's basically shown off as a traitor.
He must have been off duty from the militia that day. He didn't do much militia activity by the sound of it.
Yeah, it must have been one of those off days, Damn those off days. If only they're on the clock, then maybe we would have had more results.
I'm surprised Biden didn't pardon the Michael Byrd guy, the guy who shot Ashley Babbitt. Now I know he was investigated and cleared, but theoretically, isn't he still vulnerable? Couldn't he still be prosecuted by a new DOJ?
Depend if they actually went to trial for him on murder or whatever they went him for, and he got acquitted. Unfortunately, there's double jeopardy. But if it was like, it was clear because
why? He was never. There were never charges. He was just investigated. There was no charge or trial. Why would it be double jeopardy?
Yeah. Well, no, that's what I mean. If there was a trial, then there'd be double jeopardy. If they just investigate and say, we don't see anything wrong, but then a new DA comes in, he could definitely be charged. Because as long as he doesn't go to trial.
Yeah, which he didn't, yeah.
So I definitely would say there would be a shot. I mean, Trump's fallen through most of his problems. He's freed Ross, for God's sakes. And the left is freaking out saying he owned a trafficking website with children on it. It's like, it was drugs.
Is there any proof of that? I've heard these human trafficking allegations, and I'm not asking rhetorically. I don't know. Were there people trafficked on the Silk Road?
If they would have had evidence, I mean, God, the amount of charges and the amount of time he had to serve, literally life with 40 plus years. If you would have looked at charges, and if they said, there was also child trafficking, which I don't think he was charged with. I know it was like drug trafficking and.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is they got him on drug charges, even though, as far as I'm aware, he had nothing to do with the actual drug trade other than he built the website that was used to conduct it. But he didn't do the drug trading himself, as far as I understand. Yet they still got him on drug charges. If the same was true about human trafficking, you'd think they'd get him on human trafficking charges. But I didn't see those when I was reviewing the case today.
Yes, and listen, I'm thinking Ross. I never met Ross, but I believe if Ross finds out that there are people trafficking humans, children, at the very most, he probably would either shut it down or at least maybe contact the local authorities to that area so he gets that shut down. He only wanted free market for, again, drugs. I'm not a big drug guy, but I see he was doing no harm. And if there were evidence of human trafficking, then I think he would have a heart to be like, no, I can't allow this on my site. These people need to be brought to light.
Yeah.
I think that if they were going to lock him up, then everybody who works at the Treasury should be locked up too, because cash, oh my God, it's used to pay for all kinds of illicit crap.
And I guess in fairness, they know that most drug deals use cash when they're conducted. They have full knowledge, and yet they don't intervene. No, I don't know.
Well, just remember, when you fill out your taxes, you got to make sure to count all your stolen property as well.
Oh yeah, isn't that an actual? It's tax season, and I have to do my taxes soon. And like I said,
there's a $5,000 TV I got to put down because I stole it last week. I mean,
did all this Summer of Love looters report the value of their earnings that summer? I don't know.
I hope so, because that would be funny. It'd just be like Jordan, flat screen TV.
Dude, some of those are worth unbelievable money too. I've probably mentioned it before, but when I just want to watch some nonsense TV in the background, I put on that 24/7 Pawn Stars channel on Samsung TV or whatever, because I just like the items and some of them are interesting. But there was one recently, and it's not a recent episode; it's years ago. But this guy had a collection of Nikes and rare Jordans. And it's like this warehouse of them, but it's worth like $1 million. Some of these shoes, some of these Jordans are worth tens of thousands of dollars for a pair of shoes. And I can't believe that the market actually supports that. But I guess collectors like what they like.
I mean, there's a niche in everything, I will say. There's a niche for weapons, a niche for art. I guess shoes count as another way of art if they're good enough, I guess. Same with clothing.
Well, thank you for your call. I appreciate your thoughts.
Before I leave, I have a joke to tell you guys.
It better be good.
So you won't believe it. I saw two blind guys like fighting in the street straight up. And dude, I will tell you, it was funny to see them run because all I said was, "My money's on the one with a knife."
Ha, that's so funny. Ha ha ha.
Get the hell out of here.
Have a good day, gentlemen.
Have a good night.
Take care, man.
All right. He's already gone.
I don't know what I don't know who would try to pay that much for shoes. That's kind of mind blowing to me.
I don't get it, but people like to
lose half their value. Do they lose half their value when you put them on?
When you walk them off the lot? Yeah, when you
yes.
Yeah, when you stroll away from the Foot Locker, you just broke the glass to obtain them.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Y'all talking about shoes?
Yeah, I thought maybe no, I'm not going to do it. Joshy boy, I was going to ask you if you'd be my Jordan ambassador to understand this thing, but that would be
no, but
that would be
do
unfair.
Have siblings who do.
Oh, you do? Okay, so what is the deal with why we were talking about how expensive some Jordans are and the collector market for that sort of thing. Why and how? Do you have insight into this?
From what I understand, it's because of the designs of the shoes, it's because of the name brand, and it's basically a black culture, right? I personally don't understand it because, one, I'm classified as other, and two, I'm more of a minimalist. So I don't want to spend $100 on a pair of shoes because I find that to be ludicrous.
Classified as other. Are you telling me that you don't weaponize your ability? You don't play the race card when advantageous?
Well, I'm too white for the blacks, and I'm too black for the whites. So I have to be an other.
So rather than trying to get embraced where it fits, you recognize that you've been shunned by both. Is that what you're saying?
To a degree, I would say. I like being the odd one out. I'm always the odd one out.
Well, I certainly didn't intend to bring you in here to make you defend excessive Jordan prices. So what's on your mind?
Well, I wanted to briefly explain the whole, what was she, a bishop? Or whatever she was?
That is the claimed title, though, as the first caller, Vong, said, that's disputed. But yes.
That is disputed. So to put it briefly, women are indeed supposed to be silent in the church. They're not supposed to lead the church. The reason for this is because they're usually too susceptible to lies and they play into their emotions way too much, as we have seen displayed, right? So Yahweh has called us men to lead. That is the order. You got God, you have man, woman, and then children. That in that order. So I saw some people in the chat say that she's Episcopalian, which is more Protestant nonsense. I know I'm Protestant myself, but I'm thinking about converting over to the Orthodoxy. If she's Catholic, that's even more reason why you should go to the Orthodoxy instead. But I kind of wanted to just briefly, in 30 seconds, to explain that the first caller is indeed right. They're not supposed to be preaching. They're not even supposed to correct a guy in the scripture, right? Even if they know that the person is wrong, they're not allowed to do that.
Wow.
So
she convinced me like 2 steps away from the church, but you're convincing me 2 or 3 or 4 steps back. So thank you for that.
Yes.
Tell me more about women not being allowed to question men in any context.
Oh man, I wish I could go into that, but that'll be way too long.
Yeah.
The other thing that I kind of wanted to, I was watching Trump's inauguration on Monday since I was off work. I'm very happy that nothing bad has happened, but I'm also a little disappointed that nothing happened. I was kind of hoping.
You thought you were going to watch what was supposed to happen in Butler or something like that? What are you talking about?
Yes, I thought I was going to watch something that was supposed to happen, but I am indeed glad that Trump is back in office and now he is going ahead and signed all of his executive orders. One of which was the immigration policy, which I was very happy about. I don't know which news network this was, but basically they were showing this Latino woman crying at the border and she was breaking down and everything.
Was it AOC?
No, it wasn't AOC this time. I think it was her grandmother. But anyway.
Puerto Ricans count as Latina, do they not? Yeah, they must, right?
What are they? Aren't they in the
Given AOC can't shut up about it, yes,
they must be. Okay. Isn't Sotomayor Puerto Rican too? And she's a very wise Latina, so she must count.
Wise.
Yeah. Dude, she looked rough at the inauguration event. That lady's definitely going to be dead. Or like I say about all these people, she needs to get down to DNCHQ and get a blended baby stat. That's how they maintain their vitality. They drink blended babies. She needs to have one. Anyway, sorry, what were you saying, Joshy boy? I didn't mean to hijack your call.
No,
we were talking about women shutting up, right?
Yeah, I was talking about women shutting up. Speaking of women, that's one of the reasons that they shouldn't become police officers either, as we have seen. They either bang the whole precinct or accidentally shoot you in the leg. Yet another black man shot by police when he did nothing wrong.
Well, that I'm usually skeptical of the narrative of police abuse whenever a black man is shot by police. No, that was 100% police abuse. There's no other explanation for it.
And better yet, this is further proof that all of the idols for leftists are evil. Because I mean, if this guy was a criminal who had fought against the cops and done all that stuff, he would be lauded as a hero. But since he was just shot by accident, you're not going to see any coverage of this.
Oh no,
not by the usual leftist circles anyway.
No, and you won't. I really haven't seen a lot of mainstream discussion of that at all. And I think there is actually a very interesting police policy question on that, because I do understand why. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I do understand why there might be a policy of, if someone declares a firearm on their person in a traffic stop, why the policy might be, let's remove the firearm just to make the situation as safe as possible. Again, it's not me saying I want that policy. I just understand why maybe that would be in place. If that is the policy, that you're going to remove the firearm from the person, even if they're not presenting a threat, doesn't it? I just can't believe the policy was like, rip that thing out of the holster, or maybe that's not the policy. And sometimes
her finger is on the her finger was on the trigger.
It must have been, or something pressed the trigger.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think the policy involves putting your finger on the trigger while trying to remove it.
There's that, but I guess what I'm saying is, for a lot of guns, Glocks included, the holster itself is a safety insofar as the trigger guard is going to prevent that sort of thing from happening. Now, I know some holsters are more easily removed than others, and I don't know what kind of holster he was carrying. But a lot of holsters, it's not very hard to just remove that holstered. Just take the whole thing off the person, not actually removing the gun from the holster. Where possible, I would think you'd want to do that to make sure there's no way that anything is getting on that trigger, which apparently something did in this situation.
It's also easy not to put your hand on the trigger at all. You could have just grabbed the handle and kind of just removed it instead of trying to be hasty with it.
Yeah.
But, oh my lord, yet another reason why we shouldn't. I don't know why. I guess it's the whole equality thing that says women can do things just as easily as men. Apparently not.
Dude.
Well, they can shoot people just as easily as men, evidently.
Yeah.
If I haven't been pulled over in forever. And generally when I'm driving, I don't have a firearm on my person in that way. I do have a firearm in the car. But I've thought about, like, okay, if I do get pulled over, would I declare that to the officer just to make sure there's no misunderstanding? And my thinking has always been, yeah, I probably would. Like, even if it's just, where I have it in the car, I'd probably just let him know so that there's no surprise of any kind. Because I'm not looking to create firearm related surprises. But man, if I get pulled over by a chick cop, no. Zip in my mouth I'm not saying a damn thing. I don't even, dude, at that point, am I better off complying, or am I better off hitting the gas and driving away as fast as I possibly can? I'll take my chances with the high-speed chase, lady. You're not getting anywhere near me. This is my new personal policy if and when I get pulled over.
It reminds me of that time where remember you showing that video of 4 cop women trying to arrest this one dude, and he gets so annoyed with it, he doesn't even run away. He just kind of walks away.
Walks away.
Yeah, fuck this. You guys suck. I'm out. Yeah.
Like, he gets so annoyed with it and just kind of walks away. It makes me feel bad for these women, and at the same time, this is why they should be call operators, right? They should answer the calls and be like, what's your emergency and everything. But they shouldn't be out in the field. And I'm about to get into a whole spiel why women shouldn't be in certain areas. Like, for example, they shouldn't be in active duty in the military. I don't think they should be in supportive roles. They can be EMS. They shouldn't be firefighters or active police officers like that one lesbian dyke did. Talking about how was that a man or a woman? I have to ask.
Which one?
That LA fire person.
Oh, she's a woman. The cheat. Oh, wait. You're talking the diversity lady, like the black
the
lady with
diversity lady.
with the short hair. That's a female. I'm pretty sure.
Why the fuck are they always so ugly? But anyway. No,
I mean, why do you think they've become like
they
that?
shoot? No, the one thing I never quite. I know I have been rather tame tonight, but the one thing that has always confused me is that when they have these diversity hires, they're ugly as shit, dude.
Well, that's a chicken or the egg kind
at.
of thing. It's like, are you ugly because you're a diversity hire, or are you a diversity hire because you're ugly?
There's nothing wrong with trying to look like a woman and still be lesbian. I kid you not. It's so easy, but they want to look like dudes all the time.
Well, they have to signal to each other.
I don't know.
They have to signal to each other to identify each other in the crowd, I guess.
The myth of the sane, physically attractive lesbian. No, you'll find Bigfoot. You'll find a unicorn. There are no sane, physically attractive, mentally right lesbians.
I just don't understand it. But the fact that she says that if I have to drag your guy out of the fire, he's in the wrong place. It's called a fire. It happens. Sometimes it happens spontaneously, and maybe he can't get out or something like that. It's your job to go and rescue people.
Well, likewise, I talk about if I get pulled over by the chick cop, am I gonna gamble with her, or hit the gas and drive away and take my risk with the high speed chase? If I'm in a burning building 10 stories up and that chick walks in, what am I going to do? Jump out the building, walk into the fire, or follow her to safety? Which one are you picking?
Man, I think I was like, well, look, I'm already going to hell, so this is kind of like a prelude to that. I'll just stay here and burn.
I'm coming pre-charred, Satan. You can't burn anything more off of me. That crazy lesbian in L.A., she burnt everything off of me that was possible to burn.
But think about the implications.
There's a window nearby.
But just think about the implications of that. So that's a very valid question. Can you carry my husband out of a burning building? Right? And they try to laugh this off and says, well, women are capable of doing it. If you can't carry an unconscious man or something like that out of the building, the guy's basically going to die, right?
Yeah,
so
but
you have a loss of life.
What did he do to
got
get
himself in the wrong place?
Yeah, exactly. What was he wearing? How short was his skirt?
This is LA we're talking about. That's not an unreasonable question.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That is not a reason. That isn't. Sorry, sometimes people tell me to stop making so much sense, and I can't help it because I don't know. It just. But anyway, just more proud about how I don't know. We try giving women a chance to be like us dudes, but as the years have gone by, they have royally pissed me off. Right?
Yeah,
and this keeps going.
They don't have to be.
On.
Women have an amazing role that men can't fulfill either. It's always people always want to make this. Those women get like a hate thing or no. It's in recognition of the amazing things they can do, and unfortunately, combat and policing and saving people from burning buildings not on that list, but they can birth a new life, and that's quite amazing. And it would be great if we remember that, not to quote unquote put them in their place, but to focus on the amazing things that they can do, because it turns out it's actually quite important, and we shouldn't neglect that.
I will say this. If we're going to try to reverse the culture here, we need to start with the young ladies, right? These are the ones that are growing up. If you have daughters, start teaching them how to be wives, right? If you have, let's see, young ladies who are in high school and lower, you need to start teaching them how to be wives. It's pretty much, you got to raise the next generation.
Dude, once we got rid of home ec, it was all downhill from there. I kind of agree. Yeah. Anyway, I got to let you go, man, because we got to get to some other callers, but I do appreciate your thoughts, of course.
All right, no problem. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you, man.
Take care, man.
Sorry, I kind of interrupted you mid-thought there. What were you saying?
Oh, I don't remember.
Oh, well, my apology.
Oh, no worries.
Let's see. Tom is up next. Tom, go ahead.
Hey, how you doing?
We are well. What's on your mind?
Howdy.
The pardons. I think I'd like to see somehow the scope and constraint of what it actually means to give who you can give pardons to, who you can't, what time frames they have to be involved in. It just seems like pretty soon you're just going to say, oh, anybody I could think of is going to be pardoned for anything that they might do now in the future, in the past. It just
Well, that's
seems
called
too
New York City's justice system.
Yeah, actually, Joe Biden should become mayor of New York, or perhaps
all
prosecutor.
the more reason for there to be definition of what it means.
You raise an interesting question though, and I get it. As I mentioned, the pardon power in the Constitution is broadly worded, and I think it probably is right that if the framers intended more restrictions on it, they would have put them in there. But yeah, it is fair to ask about where the limits land, because to your point, what if the president decided, I'm going to pardon literally anyone who committed a federal crime for the entire duration of my term? Like anybody and I suppose he has that power. Can he do that? I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's it. What's the scope? What's his limits? Yeah.
But the idea, that's why the tradition of the pardon has some specificity to it. Like this person was accused of and or convicted of this thing. We are forgiving this thing for reasons X, Y, and Z if you want to elaborate. But just, to your point, like stuff he may have done over a decade, who knows? Because actually he didn't do anything. I'm just protecting him from that evil guy who wants to prosecute him. We are entering a weird territory with how the pardon is defined. Yeah.
And you say, oh, well, for a period of from 2014 on. I mean, it sounds like you're covering up something.
A lot of stuff happened in 2014 with the Biden family.
Well, since 2014.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. 2014 and beyond, a lot of things. And we know, and I know that it's like, well, what's the deal with 2014? Is it just the last decade? No, people need to remember that is the time when Hunter took on his role at Burisma. That's when it all started with this Ukrainian nonsense. There is a reason, and I have to assume that a lot of the stuff with the Biden siblings is related to all of that. Or maybe they were doing their own thing, but I guarantee you all the siblings have some knowledge about stuff that went down in Eastern Europe starting on January 1st, 2014, and that's probably why. Although I guess if they just have knowledge, that's the one downside of the pardon is I guess, at least people say, you can be compelled to talk about it because you're no longer at risk of self-incrimination per the Fifth Amendment. So they can force you to testify about stuff. Are we going to see that with the Biden family? Probably not. They have their tricks. They have their protections. But anyway, do you have any other thoughts on the pardon stuff? Or anything.
I'm glad he was able to keep his promise to the libertarians. That makes me happy. That I think it bodes well for the future.
I did get a kick out of that event in May, and I remember talking about it. It's like a guy comes in offering the libertarians the most political power and the most political relevance they've probably ever had. And half of them are like, oh, you suck, boo, I hate you. It's like, oh, God, can we come together on trying to stop rising communism in this country? Can we at least do that? I don't know. That show was so libertarian. It was hilarious.
That's the reason why the Libertarian Party is never going to go anywhere.
Well, I've considered myself a libertarian for 50 years, and I agree. I mean, I've seen all kinds of candidates come up over the years for the Libertarian Party, and a lot of times, if I'm going to vote Libertarian, I really have to hold my nose when I do it. But
early on, before I came around to Trump, because I wasn't, back in like 2015, 2016, I was not a big Trump. Well, I voted for Trump in 2016, but I had to come around to it. Like 2015, I was not a big Trump guy, but the Democrat Party was pissing me off. And so it's like I was pretty available. And then there's like Gary, you have to bake the cake Johnson, I love that. Yeah. It's like I want to maybe be interested in this party, but you guys put up that sort of thing. And then there was, remember Jo Jorgensen in 2020?
Oh, Jorgensen last time. Yeah,
she's like, well, maybe we have some things in common with Black Lives Matter and Antifa commies. I'm like, okay, I'm out.
This Oliver
was the most recent.
Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about him. He was the Libertarian Party nominee, obviously, because they were trying to make Trump the nominee, and that would have been smarter. But I didn't look. How did he do? Did he, like, compared to prior libertarian candidates, how did he perform? Better, worse? I don't know.
I didn't see, but I would guess that he didn't do as well.
He must, per that Brandon Herrera tweet, I'm sure he probably made that with some knowledge too. It must have been that former libertarian votes and independent votes went to Trump for reasons like Ross Ulbricht and other things that were discussed at that convention. But,
right.
All right, Tom, anything else you want to discuss on or after January 1st, 2014 that, who knows what it might be, but something generally related to anything?
I'm no apologist for the Philly mayor, but I've been known to misspell the word Eagles at times when I'm celebrating in my own home.
Are you an Eagles fan, I take it then?
Yeah, I'm South Jersey. So
man, I know this isn't the sports talk show, but I can't stand the Eagles or the fans. So I'm,
I know. I feel bad. I hate the fans when they act like that. So
there was that viral guy. I won't get into that, but the guy who was calling that lady a dumb C word or whatever. Although, pursuant to a lot of tonight's conversations, she probably was being a dumb cunt. Who knows?
What is it with the Eagles and like these dialectical mistakes? Like for now, there's this chick, but then before there was Fetterman going, "Eagles are better than Eagles."
I thought he was a Steelers guy. No, is he an Eagles guy? I don't know. I saw a report that Fetterman is considering joining the Republican Party. I don't know if that was true or if that was fake news or what that was.
I wouldn't be surprised because as he's recovered from his traumatic brain issues, he's sort of as his brain has been repaired, he has sort of slowly slid right.
Yeah, I can't wait till Based Frankenstein is on our team. This is going to be great.
I'll admit he's kind of endeared himself to me a little bit. I mean,
he has
he's
his
still
moments,
nuts, but
for sure.
Yeah.
The thing about Fetterman, even though a lot of his policy stances I don't agree with, he at least, despite his brain damage, he comprehends humor. And that's more than most progressive leftist Democrats can say. So he does have that. The part of his brain that processes humor remains after whatever's happened to him. But all right, Tom, thank you for your call. Very much appreciated. And, all the best to your Eagles, even though you guys are a crazy group.
I know. I'm hopeful, but we'll see.
Have a good night. I'll catch you next time. Eagles fans always like notoriously hostile to the other team, notorious like this guy who went viral for calling that chick a dumb cunt or whatever. Nobody will top the insanity of the Eagles fan who ate actual horse shit after the NFC Championship. I don't know if you've seen that one.
That's disgusting.
I might be able to pull that up. I don't even know if Raja Mohan will allow it, but if people are interested, and actually you probably shouldn't be, just Google Eagles fan eats horse poop. And the thing is, you'd think he did it out of rage that the Eagles were defeated. No, the Eagles won. And part of his celebratory street fun was eating actual horse poop from there was a police mounted unit, and he harvested some of the horse droppings and ate them. And it's on camera to celebrate the Eagles win. I will take a few more calls. You good on time, Batman? As always.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Appreciate you hanging around. But anytime the time expires, you just say the word.
All right.
Canadian Egg, are you there?
I am. How you doing?
We are well. What's on your mind?
How are you?
Good. I'm good. That was jarring because I was still listening and you were talking about horse poop.
Have you seen that clip before?
I've never seen that clip, but that is something that always has confused me about sports fans. Like, I like weird niche sports. Like, I like strongman. If you know,
is that just like they move logs and they do crazy strong things?
That's like, you ever see them lift the big boulders up to the shoulder or whatnot, or put them on the pedestal, and then it's a mix of, they got regular stuff like deadlift in there as well. Like, it's basically move heavy weight from point A to point B, or pick it up is a lot of what it is. But that's like, if you ever heard of Brian Shaw or Eddie Hall, or did you watch Game of Thrones?
Yeah. Oh, the Mountain. Yeah.
The Mountain. Yeah. That's his sport. Yeah.
Now,
Thorbjornsson is his name.
Yeah, Thorbjornsson. Yeah.
I did get this slightly wrong about the the Eagles fan. It was not the NFC Championship. It was the Super Bowl.
You are fake news. Very fake news.
He celebrated the Eagles' Super Bowl win by eating horse poop. But yes, here's the story. I'm not going to play the video. Well, you won't be able to see it, Mr. Canadian Egg, but I could play the audio. Can I play this?
I do have the stream up on my monitor.
It's going to be like 20. So the video will be like 20 seconds behind for you, but let me just play a little of this. Oh, there's no audio here. It's actually silent. You guys will. There he is, bending over. There he is. You see him? He picked it up off the ground. He shoved it into his mouth to celebrate the Eagles' Super Bowl win. And if Raju Mohan doesn't allow me to play this, I will note, Raju Mohan, this is hosted from your website. So don't punish me for what's already up there. Yeah, that's the video of the Eagles fan doing that. Anyway.
Yeah, that's gross. Yeah, see, some sports fans are weird. Anyway, the topic I wanted to talk about was the limits or potential limits or any arguments that could be made for or against rather the pardon power of the president. Because this is something I've wondered a lot, especially even looking like, I know you brought up you brought it up earlier and highlighted that the section of the Constitution. And even on that, I assume you got that from the government website where they do a little bit of annotation on the Constitution.
I forget what exactly that website is. To grab that, I just Googled pardon clause text. I forget exactly which site it is, but yeah.
Gotcha. But there's certain limits that I think need to be questioned, which I understand that throughout the history. I don't know, every pardon that's ever happened. Obviously, I'm a Canadian, but I pay more attention to American politics than Canadian politics, admittedly. But it's something weird because a pardon that broad, I don't think has ever happened before, where it's anything over the past 10 years, even though they've never been accused, charged, or convicted of something.
Yeah,
any crime.
My understanding is just that prior to this, Nixon got a general pardon related to the events of Watergate. So it was kind of open-ended, but it was at least tied to a specific event, as some of Biden's pardons are. But, I mean, this decade-long anything and everything, but maybe not violence. That stuff is not...
traditionally are supposed to be rather specific, aren't they?
Well,
it's supposed to be, this person is pardoned for this crime.
Yeah, I looked at this with regard to the Hunter Biden stuff, and I'm not expert historian guy, so take my word with a grain of salt, but I've read through legal arguments, people who are apparently educated on this, and generally speaking, there is a history in the English tradition, the common law tradition, of that being necessary for a valid pardon. In fact, if I recall correctly, I think that was actually part of an act of parliament in England immediately prior, or, sometime around the same time, but prior to our constitutional writing and ratification, where they actually, the Parliament had put together something to rein in the power of the king to pardon, because the king had done something to that effect, like pardons that were too general, too broad, too undefined.
Yeah, that's typically a lot of English common law history, is where the king or Parliament does something and then they refine it, and a lot of it's never even codified. It just becomes part of the convention.
Well, it does make sense. Just in general, a general principle sense, what do they love to say? Nobody is above the law. Well, in a way, this is making someone kind of above the law. Like, you're not even specifying what you're forgiving them for. Because in theory, a pardon is more about forgiveness than protection. It's about saying, you were charged with this, you were convicted for this, but you were maybe mistreated or misunderstood, or you've reformed in ways X, Y, and Z, so you are now forgiven. It wasn't about protecting people from valid prosecution. At least in principle, it's not. But now that's what we're doing. We're protecting people from valid prosecution. And I guess the other side would say, well, that's the thing. We're preemptively protecting from invalid prosecution. Well, if the case is that flimsy, isn't that the point of the jury? Isn't that the point of the trial? If there is no case against Adam Schiff and Liz Cheney and Kinzinger or any of these people, well, how is a DOJ going to drum up charges that will surely be thrown out maybe before they even get to trial?
Well, that's the
Well, I think
question
they're
that I
very.
think...
Sorry,
go ahead, Batman.
All right, Batman first. You guys sound
Okay, well,
you guys are echoing each other. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're very much aware that the process is the punishment, right?
Yeah,
So
there's that too.
They are doing what they need to do to not be inconvenienced by, any part of the legal justice system or anything like that. Because who knows how long they could be wrapped up in it, and Biden's gonna get out of office and then die like 4 months later, and so that's
someone's just gonna find his body on Rehoboth Beach very soon. Maybe he's still in the crosswalk where he crashed his bike. It'll just be laying there.
Like,
or
I know
maybe in Obama's pool.
Yeah.
There's probably more than a few down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the pursuit of justice, like I understand that, yeah, the process is the punishment because that's how it's used. And generally, I say the purpose of a system is what it does, right? And so it's used for that. But if you're actually after the pursuit of justice, I think that's a question that needs to be answered. Like, if the DOJ, I don't even know if they would dare to begin this, but actually try and prosecute them for a crime. Or, I mean, you'd have to investigate first, investigate to find cause of a crime and evidence of a crime, like, let's say, Fauci, because, of course, I think that was the big one that pissed everybody off.
Yeah,
especially
God, dude,
even up north here, my dad was freaking yapping in my ear like, they pardoned that motherfucker Fauci.
Dude, I'm glad he and I had the exact same Monday morning. God, man, it was like it really soured the day. I don't want to overstate it. It's not like it ruined my day, but you're waking up, it's like, son of a bitch, Trump is president again. What? No, they just.
Oh, I know. Well,
it's like
it's just, he was so. His effect went beyond the United States. Like, he's such a big medical figure that it wasn't just within the United States. It was all across, at least the Western world. There would be people that looked to Fauci for guidance on what to do, especially during that time. And health officials in other countries would mimic or parrot him, essentially.
Yeah,
what he was saying.
And if there's one thing I could say, how am I even finding myself in this position? God, I'm insufferable sometimes, but here I go. If there's one thing that I could say in slight defense of Fauci, or maybe just criticism of others, Fauci himself was not a law enforcement officer. Fauci himself was not pointing a gun at anybody and making them do anything necessarily. No, I still think I think he made AIDS. I think he made COVID. I think he cooked it all up.
That's where
Okay.
I was gonna go. I was like, you're right. He is not a law enforcement officer. He never went and welded somebody within their home.
But he
may or may not allegedly be the catalyst that led to a lot of all of that.
He right. But a lot of the Fauci phenomenon was cowardice before him. Like we lacked the courage as a society to stand up to this Keebler elf and tell him to shut the hell up.
Well, yeah,
Get back in the tree, old man. Make us some cookies, okay? That's all it took. And in large part, we couldn't do it. You have local jurisdictions, state jurisdictions, some federal, but just getting in line, doing whatever this guy tells them to. And the truth of the matter is, he's pathetic. You remember that interview of him with that female reporter where it looked like he had to stand on a stool to be a foot shorter than she was, and she's 5'6"?
Physiognomy is an unbeaten science, it seems.
I'm sure Dr. Fauci knows all about that science too. But yeah, there was something so frustrating. Like, it's frustrating to be a society of cowards, and in many ways we were, but cowards before whom? If it's freaking Khal Drogo coming in and killing my whole town and saying, like, you will obey me now, I'll be like, I don't want to fight you. All right, I guess I will. If it's freaking Dr. Fauci, the elf man, it's like, yeah, shut the hell up and get out of here. But we laid down for him, and it was pathetic.
But I think, like, if there was an investigation that was put forth, there's already pretty good evidence that he perjured himself.
Oh yeah.
But let's say if there was even further evidence through that he could go, okay, he actually funded this lab in Wuhan that created this that may or may not have leaked it. I don't actually know a lot about if it was an intentional leak or not, but still violating U.S. law, funding this gain-of-function research, even if it wasn't being conducted on U.S. soil. It's like if you can definitively bring that evidence and go, okay, look, there's good cause to charge this man with breaking this law. I think that would be a worthy. I don't even know how that process would begin. I guess they could just charge him, and it would be, I guess, argued in the courts right away. That'd probably shoot right to the Supreme Court to go, well, hold on, I have a pardon. Sorry, I have a pardon for this. I cannot be charged with this. I was pardoned. And so he'd
kind of exaggerated, but not bad. Not bad. I like that one. Yeah.
He'd have his pardon for all crimes. Then you go, okay, well, hold on, you were just pardoned blanketly, and then maybe that could fine tune, even if he gets off.
No, I think you're exactly right. That
it would still be a good goal or a good result if it fine tuned to kind of specify what that power means. So you can't just do a blanket.
In the same way that obviously Trump is challenging certain understandings of the law, say through birthright citizenship, like I was talking about. There's probably a route to do that in the way you're describing. If you want to get some clarity on the pardon issue, you probably have to bring a case. You probably pick your most prosecutable Biden person and you bring a case. And when that guy says to the court in which you bring the charges, no, I was pardoned, you can't. Then I guess there's a question of what is a valid pardon and did he receive one? And I think that's the only way that stuff gets clarified.
Yeah, and I think, it's a rather Trump-friendly court right now, aside from them absolutely cucking back, in 2020 and not even wanting to hear the case from Texas against Pennsylvania and when it came to the votes. But we'll leave that in the past. But it's a more Trump-friendly court that they might actually hear this case. Not say they'll rule with him on party lines, because I don't think that's a good thing either. But at least hear the case so you could get this answer. Because the fact that it's just unanswered right now makes it seem like you could go beyond Joe Biden's pardon and say anything this guy ever did, he's forgiven for. Ever. Like, why stop at 10 years? Why not go back their entire life? It's like, oh, there we go. They had this thing on their record when they were 18. Now they don't, and so it just
fair question. And we'll see if we can get some clarity on that. But I wish I had more time to ask you about what the hell's going on in Canada, because it's very interesting up there with all the Trudeau developments. But I'll probably have to save it for another time because I want to make sure
I can try to do it quickly.
I'll probably have to let you go. But if you want to call back and talk about it, we could do that. Because
okay. Yeah, I was funny. I was going to call him last week if it was still in the news, the 51st state thing.
Oh,
I was like, then it kind of passed. But I was like, all right, I'll just let that lie then. But maybe I'll call and I talk.
Yeah, sure. Time. Thanks for calling in, man.
Thanks for having me.
Have a good one.
Okay, I got just a couple callers, Batman, if you're cool with that, and we'll call it a night after that. Mr. Chinese name that I forget how to pronounce, but also you have a regular name like James or something, right?
Justin.
Didn't I say James last time? God damn.
You did.
Pretty sure, yeah.
Justin. I knew it was a J. God, I'm going to get this right one of these times. All right, what's on your mind, man?
Just wanted to talk about pardons, because I'm sure you guys aren't tired of that yet.
No, I know. I mean, obviously, it's the topic of the week. I find all this stuff really fascinating. I think that what we're watching is an historic level of abuse and corruption, and it needs a little clarity.
Well, and this whole... like, this is kind of unrelated, but the whole thing with the executive orders, like, we cannot be governing our country this way, but the Democrats aren't going to stop doing it, so we have to match them and try to make them feel the pain so they can get the idea that this should not be done.
Yeah, I do kind of hate this show of, like, president gets elected and walks, and, like... even though I mostly like the things that are being done, I sort of hate this premise of executive power and that we elect a president to go in and like change law on the spot and stuff. And the reality is it's a lot of undoing the bullshit that Democrats have done. And there is a need for that. So I'm not ignoring that, but I do agree that like in a proper constitutionally faithful system, we shouldn't be doing this. Now that's a big qualifier. Like how far away from that anyway. So,
and it just sucks that the government and the culture by extension just does a 180 every 4 to 8 years. That's no way to have a country.
That's true. Yeah.
Anyway, back to the pardons thing. Like, yes, some of the January 6th people were violent. Some of them did commit crimes. Sure, go after them for that. But the people who just calmly and orderly walked through the Capitol building unarmed, not causing a ruckus, why are you trying to throw the book at these people, especially when the riots of the previous year were largely just allowed to happen? Like, you look at someone like and I think Batman was the one who brought up the New York justice system, like the QAnon shaman. He got more time than a pair of lawyers in New York who torched a police car with Molotov cocktails.
Yep.
And
true.
Like, their argument in court was, oh, they were working through their trauma.
No,
Really?
the mostly peaceful protesters were.
Like, this is something we teach our toddlers. Matt, I'm sure this is something you've told your son.
Oh, he works through his trauma. Yeah, let me tell you.
I know you have big feelings, but that does not mean you can haul off and slug your brother or throw his toys all over the place.
Yeah.
Like, this is a grown adult lawyer making this kind of an argument in court and not being laughed out of the room. Like, we are not a serious country at that point.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, again, outside of like Ray Epps is the only one I can think of where even the violent people on January 6th, the worst examples, even if you're a big time, like January 6th was one of the worst days in the history of the country type person. Even the violent people, who are you honestly going to say, oh man, that guy got off easy. He got off light. They really just gave him a slap on the wrist. Who is that guy? Nobody other than Mr. I live in the Rocky Mountains in a camper in an undisclosed location, Ray Epps.
Well, and we just cannot win because, like, the Portland courthouse got attacked repeatedly the previous year. And then the Democrats whined when Trump said, well, if you're not going to enforce the law, I'm sending the National Guard in.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember
in 2019, they burned down St. John's Church. Basically, nothing happened there.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the one where Trump stood outside with the Bible? Or no, that was a different event. They burned because they didn't burn down that church.
Yeah.
Or did they burned that church? I can't remember.
They did.
Oh, really? Okay. That's the thing, is there are so many of these events that they run together, you know?
Interestingly enough, actually, when that all went down, Trump went out to survey the damage, and it was that same bishop,
right,
in giant neon air quotes. It was that same bishop who then accused him of using the pulpit to spew politics because he had gone to survey the damage. It's that same chick.
Okay, so the pulpit as in the church, not as in like his presidential pulpit. Okay.
Right.
Okay. I thought you meant she accused him of using the presidential pulpit for politics, and some might call that suitable.
No, I mean, using the church as a method to sort of bolster his political image. That she accused him of that, which is now that's of course aged like milk, given what she's just done here.
Of course.
Yeah.
And you, like, whatever your stance may be on women of the cloth, and for my part, I'm against it as well, but you are not to be giving a sermon in order to give your own thoughts. You're to be speaking the words of God, and that is a solemn responsibility that you are trampling all over.
Yeah, and I get that insofar as morality and politics intersect, because they necessarily do, scripture, faith, religion, that's going to intersect with politics necessarily too, because a lot of these things are moral judgments. But yeah, I mean, I think your point is very well stated there. Is she seeking morality through God, or is she just imposing God onto her moral preconceptions? And it seems pretty obvious to me what she's doing. And so at least I don't remember the parts about tranny kids and all that kind of stuff. Granted, my scriptural experience is limited so far, but I've not heard a lot about tranny kids in what I've read.
You know, you're not going to find that.
Yeah. Well, Thank you for the call, man. I appreciate it.
You guys have a good night.
You as well.
Take care now.
All right, last word is going to go to Skulldugger. Skulldugger, go ahead.
Hey, how's it going?
We are well. What's on your mind?
Howdy.
I'd probably have to go for the executive, or no, the pardons versus pardons.
Yeah, go ahead.
As far as I can tell, the presidential pardon is an absolute power for the executive branch, in that it's not a privilege that is awarded to the executive branch just for the sake of awarding the power. It is actually in the Constitution as a check against the judiciary.
Yeah, that's it's a check against the judicial system. Yeah, that's fair.
So putting limits and restrictions on it, the question is, who then gets to impose the restrictions and limitations on what is already a limitation?
As in, is there judicial review of judicial review? Or right. It wouldn't be judicial review, it'd be a check on the judiciary.
Right.
Yeah.
So how could the judiciary then be in a position to offset what is actually a check against them?
I guess because what's the justice in Madison versus Marbury? It is emphatically the duty of this court to say what the law is, even insofar as the law defines the court itself. Was it Justice Marshall way back in the day? I don't know. There's actually a constitutional question about whether judicial review itself, as in the Supreme Court and the federal court's ability to evaluate laws for constitutional compliance, whether that should even exist at all.
That's true.
So, yeah, I mean, like, would the Supreme Court evaluating, say, Biden's pardons for constitutional compliance, would that be even inside the scope of their constitutional role?
It doesn't appear to, from my understanding of the Constitution and the checks and balances. The way that I see it is, I don't see there being any mechanism by which the court should be able to limit or restrict the presidential pardon, because it is necessarily a correction, or in most cases would be. It was prior to what Biden just did.
Yeah.
A correction against something that has already gone through the judicial process.
Yeah, and I think that that being wary or being careful about having one branch with too much power over the other in the way you're describing, it can be very wise, and I think it's a good, just kind of a good general position to hold, with the understanding that ultimately we the people have the power over all of this through our ability to amend the Constitution if we find flaw in it. In this case, I think maybe from your perspective, if the pardon power is overbroad and abused, as I think it kind of is in this context, the solution is maybe not the Supreme Court reviewing it and saying, well, actually, that's unconstitutional because of centuries-old English common law. Maybe the solution is just, if everybody agrees that this is beyond the scope of what the pardon ought to be, why don't we just get together in our states and ratify a constitutional amendment and fix this? But we'll never do it. That's the problem.
Will it be the 20?
Yeah.
Will it be the 28th Amendment?
No, it's the 29th now. Yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, is that just going away? Did they just, like, that's cute, Biden, that you've declared a 28th, but, you know, no one really gives a shit. Thank you, but please go away. Is that all that happened there?
The actual person who would be responsible for officially entering it into the Constitution has said no.
So, you're saying that's a guy? There is like a guy who does that?
There is a position. There is a person who is ultimately responsible for striking or adding to the Constitution.
Like if you have a proper amendment actually ratified, yes, there's a guy whose official role, it doesn't go to just some secretary to type it in there or something. Does he use like Jefferson's quill to write it, or what does he do?
That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. That I don't.
Or maybe Madison's quill. I guess he was, Madison and Hamilton, but whatever. Jefferson can do it too.
But as far as Trump's pardons go, I I would prefer to have seen the people who engaged in violent activities, especially against law enforcement, like people who, for example, used tasers against cops, probably not receive the presidential pardon in that case.
Cucking for Fanone.
Get the hell out of here.
I think some of those sentences probably did warrant more than the 3 to 4 years that have been served. But I understand the just sweeping it all away. I understand that maneuver, especially given that Biden had pardoned the January 6th committee, who in
That's true, yeah.
multiple instances violated the constitutional rights of many of these defendants. And now they have no legal recourse against the government that railroaded them. And so for that point, since Biden let the government people off the hook, I don't see any problem with Trump then saying, all right, fine, I'm going to let all the citizenry off the hook as well. And we'll call it a day. We'll call everything null, and everybody takes their ball and goes home.
I wonder if the decision to pardon the January 6th committee did inform or influence Trump's decision on the January 6th offenders, because it is, at least I've seen reported, that Trump reached this conclusion that he wanted to do this short term. As in, when I say do this, I mean like the sweeping, pretty much everybody, you're all pardoned or having your sentences commuted. It sounds like that was a decision made very recently, like right before he did it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the Biden pardon did inform Trump's decision.
Yeah. All right, I'll see your bullshit pardon, and I'll bring. I don't think the January 6th stuff was bullshit, but I what I'm saying is, if you think that what Biden is doing is bullshit, which I do, I see the temptation to be like, nope, fuck this. I don't care about specificity or particulars.
Right.
We're doing the pardon party. Here we go. Let's just do it.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean that appears to be what happened. I mean, I don't like Biden's pardon for sure. I think the January 6th committee definitely should have. I mean, I still think there should be some a review of what went on there. I mean, there's an absolute indication that evidence was withheld in order to guarantee convictions, and that's not something anybody should ever support.
All of this stuff gets so frustrating too, and I don't say this to downplay what I believe are the abuses and the political hacksmanship of the January 6th committee, because the whole thing was a sham. But it is frustrating too. We talk about how like the government, the prior caller, you vote for president, one president just kind of reverses what the last president did every 4 or 8 years. In this case too, it's like, well, okay, we elect new leaders in government to investigate the last leaders in government, and it's just this perpetual self-investigation for along partisan lines. God, dude, I'm not saying it would be unreasonable to look at the January 6th committee, but it is so frustrating where government exists in large part for that purpose. The whole thing sucks.
Well, right. I mean, imagine what happens with the birthright citizenship if the Supreme Court doesn't take the case. If we don't end up with a ruling on it, then it just becomes a presidential football. And so as soon as the other parties,
I guess unless a lower court
is back on the table,
if a lower court strikes it down and the Supreme Court doesn't take it, then I guess it would go back to what it was before, I guess. But anyway,
I mean, even if the lower court doesn't strike it down,
they say like Trump is right, and the Supreme Court doesn't affirm, is what you're saying. They just leave it
right.
I think they're almost certain to take it in either scenario, because it's a new thing and it's of significant consequence. But
I mean, so was the state of Texas case against Pennsylvania in the 2020 election.
Yeah, that's true.
Because the court chose not to take. Who else is going to take that case? Like
I think
it seems like that's the type of case that the Supreme Court has to take, because there's nowhere else to put that case.
The Supreme Court is also notoriously cautious about entering. As this might sound like a silly statement in the context of 2000, but generally speaking, the Supreme Court, and I think a lot of courts in general, don't want to enter the territory of interfering with election results, even if that interference is perfectly warranted and probably correct, or maybe correct. I don't know. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I think the Supreme Court's hesitation on that issue is not going to be as strong on the immigration issue and the birthright citizenship thing.
I mean, I could see their hesitation in that essentially reconfigures very strongly an interpretation of one of the amendments. I mean, it would have a huge sweeping consequence one way or the other, and I could see them not wanting to deal with that.
Ooh. Well, I mean, yeah, I think we'll find out one way or another. I suppose it's going to take a little while to work its way through the lower courts, but call in like a year, and then we'll see what the status of it is.
I'll put it on my calendar.
Yeah, man. Thank you for calling in. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out and letting me make it through.
Of course. Do you have any thoughts on that stuff, Batman?
Honestly, no, not really. This is an issue that I haven't really given a ton of thought to. So it was interesting to sort of sit and absorb that, but I would need to process that a little more.
The birthright citizenship
presidential.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, the presidential pardon thing is something that I've sort of taken for granted because it hasn't really been abused to this level until now.
Yeah, you see them once in a while, or every president has a handful on his way out or whatever. Now it's just, it's like a pardon war. In the same way we have executive order wars, we have pardon wars now, it seems.
Yeah. So that's always something I'd just taken for granted. But now, this most recent, couple of elections has really brought a lot of things to light that make you think, what changes need to be made? What philosophies have we taken for granted that should be reevaluated? Things of that nature.
I'm surprised you're still thinking about those questions philosophically and not like what tools we have at our disposal to correct these matters. I mean, physical tools, things like.
I definitely feel that way too.
Anyway,
but there's I don't know. There was a lot to absorb there. So
you want to stick around for some super chat? I got a few to get through before the end of the stream, or if you want to call it a night, that's cool too.
I think I'll call it here.
Okay,
it's getting kind of late on my end.
Of course, yeah, you're on East Coast time, so I get it. Yes. You got work to do. You got babies to take care of, or at least one baby.
The one.
But,
yep.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I appreciate your contribution to the show as always, and thank you for joining. And I'm sure we'll see you back here soon.
All right, take care.
We love you. You're very special.
There we go. As we appreciate Batman's contribution as always. I will catch up with your super chats. We'll call it a night. Let's see. Got to go back. I'm going to start off on Rumble here. I'll get to you guys on YouTube and Tippy very shortly. Thank you for your patience. I know it's been a long stream tonight, but a lot to talk about, of course. Dangerous Space is our friendly call screener. I hate all the conservatives who decry pardoning violent January 6thers. Did these people initiate violence, or was it self-defense? We've been lied to so much I don't trust the narrative on J6 violence. I'm sure there is some of that. Now, did people attack police officers? Yeah, I mean, it's on video. It happened. I don't think that it was, all a self-defense scenario, though I know that's not what you're saying. That said, I have heard, I've heard that there were instances of police aggression as well. And I'm sure that probably is part of what happened. Again, not all. But part of what happened, I wouldn't be surprised to know that there's some truth to that. GR says, even if birthright citizenship ends outright, I don't think you can or anybody will want to or will want it retroactively enforced. I think it's just too late to go back and strip citizenship. I guess I hadn't thought of that. And I don't know that even if it was determined to be constitutionally incorrect, I don't think there would be retroactive enforcement in that way. At least I would be very surprised if that were to happen, but we'll see how that is implemented if that change actually comes around. Banana Hammer, better without blonde. Nothing against her, but keep on trucking, brother. Well, I appreciate the support for the show. Thank you, and thanks for tuning in. Compound Fracture. I hope this first week of Trump's second term forever discredits right-wingers who advocated not voting for Trump because he wouldn't go far enough. Anything can change if we have the will to do it. Well, yeah, I mean, it's I get it. I get the perspective of the black pill and the collapsitarianism and all that. I mean, this country has major problems, and that's not to minimize them. But I do think that there are a lot of things moving right now. If you believe the country is salvageable, and I know that not everybody does, but if you do think there is hope for this country and to turn this ship around, hey man, I see a lot of ship turning. Doesn't mean that I'm fully confident that all our problems are going to be solved or something like that. But I do think that a lot of things, a lot of the worst parts of the last 4 years and beyond are starting to turn around, that people have seen things that are bad enough, that it's finally bad enough that people are starting to change their minds. I think there's some of that going on. So yeah, if you look at this last week or really dating back to Election Day and you don't have some optimism, even if it's just a little bit of a flicker in your cold black heart, I don't know what show you're watching, because it's been a good one, and it's welcome to me. Dangerous Spaces says Biden pardoned a dude who was jailed for killing 2 FBI agents. I didn't know about that one. What about the violent criminal who got arrested and then they're released by Democrat DAs and politicians? Betrayed, fuck off. And I couldn't believe he said that. It's the betrayal language. Like, I get it. You were there on January 6th. I wasn't. You have a more direct experience with it. You know, maybe my perspective is wrong and you're right as far as how bad it was or whatever. That's all fine. I'm not actually mad at that. But when you tell me that I'm betraying you because I've decided that the state of the country well beyond January 6th is unacceptable and we should have a change in leadership, that I've betrayed you. Sorry, man. It's rough out here. I don't know what to tell you. I know things are kind of cushy in D.C. for a lot of people, not for the rest of America. And people voted accordingly, and they're not betraying you. A lot of them probably have a great deal of respect for you, actually. Yvonne626, I recently learned that Ross Ulbricht did pay $1 million to a guy who fake killed 2 people. It was all an elaborate, it was a scam against Ross, he says. He did pay them lots of money, believing it would lead to death. I haven't seen it. I don't know. I guess I'll take your word for it. My only skepticism on that is that there was no charge and no conviction. But if there's evidence out there, as far as I understand, there was like some screenshot of communication, but Ross Ulbricht and his mom say it was fake. Like the feds faked it. It wasn't real. All I know is nobody died and there was no charge and no conviction. But maybe there's more truth to it than I realize. GR also says, this fucking idiot leftist spammer in the chat is pissing me off. Can I be a mod, please? Well, we could talk about that, GR. You know, generally I try to be pretty hands-off about, chat censorship. But for truly abusive behavior, like obstructive spam type stuff, maybe we can clean that up. But you can send me an email, GR. We'll talk about it. Dangerous Spaces, following on from Joshy Boy's point, why the fuck do women who want to attract other women make themselves look like men? I understand attraction is more physical, but isn't that just weird? Just me? Well, I don't know. I mean, isn't that just it? Like, something about lesbianism is kind of like masculine in its aims. Like, you want to please a woman, I guess. I don't know. So you try to become a man because women are attracted to men? Something like that. Honey Twerkman says, to the golden age. Yeah, I guess that's where we're going. That's where Trump says we're going. And hopefully he's right. Thank you, Honey Twerkman. GR says, you guys going on about this butch bitch in the LA Fire Department Affirmative Action Department. Doesn't look like a black bitch to me. It looks like a stocky Latino or a Samoan dude. He does look like he could probably play right guard for an NFL team or something, or she, or whatever the person is. Doesn't look like a full-size man, but a woman. I'm pretty sure it's a chick, though. Just listen to the voice. You can always tell by the voice, and that sounds like a female voice to me, but just my assessment. Okay. D-Live, we're good. Odyssey, what's going on Odyssey? We got more memes. Thank you, Blanket. I appreciate that. Making fun of Fauci is welcome anytime. And that's apparently the only justice we're going to get against him. All right, over on YouTube and Tippy, Long Dong John, fun fact, Ross Ulbricht spent more time in jail, I read this one, than anyone who did anything illicit, right. Also says, do you know the story of Guy Reffitt? Yes, the J6 guy whose son turned him in and testified against him. Now he's being pardoned. The son went on TV saying he's getting a gun to protect himself from the dad, whose only comment since was, I still love him. Yeah, I have not seen a lot of evidence that dad is like a truly dangerous guy. But I'd be pretty pissed off if my son did that to me. So who knows? Once again, just a horrible story about how politics can really tear a family apart. And I hope that family is able to come back together. But man, that's got to be hugely damaging. Deb Stupp. Simple. Women in ruling authority is a sign of God's judgment. Quote, my people, infants are their oppressors and women rule over them. This is Isaiah 3:12. Read the whole chapter for more context. Well, thank you for the insight and for the reference. And, as long as the Bible study is still going, maybe someday we'll get there. And actually, this topic of like women in leadership roles and roles within the church, that has come up in the Bible study a little bit. So I know somewhere in Acts that came up, and we were talking about that a few weeks ago. I can't remember the exact context, though. Jason says, there is no act more traitorous and cowardly than selling out a family member for a political crime. I think you hit it right there. Because when I think about like, okay, there are crimes that my family could commit that should be brought to justice. And I don't mean like necessarily ratting them out to the FBI. I just mean like, if my family member murdered a guy in cold blood and I know about that, I would feel a moral obligation to bring my family member to justice. By definition, if he murdered him in cold blood, there is no justification. Now, if your family member has some plausible justification, like it wasn't murder, I was threatened and it was self-defense. Okay, I get all that. But if I know for a fact that like I watched my brother kill a guy in cold blood, I think there is a moral obligation to bring justice to that crime. That's far different from a political crime. That's the distinction that you're making. Like, he did something I disagree with politically. He trespassed in the wrong place. He supported the wrong political party. He didn't attack anyone. He didn't commit violence. He didn't necessarily even abuse anybody. To sell out a family member for that is betrayal and is tragic. Ryan Allen says the dad can forgive him and also not let him back into his life. You don't have to make yourself vulnerable to a person again after you forgive them. And that's true. Forgiveness doesn't mean that things go back to the way they were or that you necessarily trust the person or that you want that person closely involved with you anymore. Forgiveness just means that you move on from letting that abuse or letting that mistreatment of you control your life. It just means that you no longer harbor like an ill will toward that person, a resentment toward that person. But yeah, forgiveness needs to be wise too. And it needs to make sure that you don't set yourself up for the very same abuse or mistreatment. So well stated, Ryan. I very much appreciate that. And I appreciate your support for the show. And it looks like we're good on Rumble. Looks like we're good on DLive. Looks like we're good on Odyssey, which means I am just in time to conclude in under 3 hours. So it was a good long stream tonight, but there's so much to talk about in the news. So I really appreciate all of the contributions of everybody tuning in live, all you chatters, all of you super chatters, and of course, all of our callers. Thank you for making the live production a success. Appreciate Batman for helping out with calls. As always, thanks to producer Tim for his help this evening as well. If you'd like more to listen to, you know where to find it. Podcast page on my website, mattchristiansenmedia.com/podcasts. Anything else? mattchristiansenmedia.com. I'm back on Sunday and Wednesday nights. Have a great night and a great week.